the low value men? Like, what are all the low value men up to during these trying times? Because the high value men, I know they're around. They won't shut the fuck up. Low value men, I have not heard a word out of. I'm starting to think I'm on their side. I think I want one of those. I want a low value man. They don't make podcasts. I haven't seen one low value man make a podcast. Do they not know how to use microphones? Maybe that's a good thing. That's hot. All right, I've never seen a man use a microphone for good.
Until now, everybody buckle up. It's low value mail time with your host, Danny Polishchuk. Hot friggin' darn. It is an all new episode of Low Value Mail on this Monday, November 18th. 2024, the year of our Lord. I didn't flub that. I think I flubbed that last week. I think I said it was August. It's been a tough few months for everybody. I don't know. Has it? Anyways, we got a great show. Welcome back, everybody. Shout out to all the new listeners, new viewers who have come across the show in the last few weeks. It's heartening to know that people are liking the changes I made. But yeah, so we got a banger today. Joining me in the second hour of the show, we have Jack Kelley, the creator of the documentary The Atlantis Puzzle, and we'll be discussing his film and all things about the mysteries of Atlantis. Is it in Florida? We had Old World Florida on the show a couple months back. He said it's in Florida. That's what he said. Doesn't sound like this is what Jack Kelley thinks, but we will be talking to him very shortly, and that'll be exciting. Welcome back, everybody. It's been a fun, exciting week. We've got lots to discuss. Don't call in until I open the phone lines, which I will be doing. Don't worry. I know a lot of you really you got a lot on your minds, a lot you want to say. You know, you got a lot of thoughts. But we're not going to get to those quite yet, but we will get to them. So, first things first, I've been talking a lot about this. I know some of you know that it's a little fascination of mine, I guess you could say, what's going on with the media right now. It's a bit of a reordering, if you will. We're watching it happen in real time. It's one of those things that takes a long time to truly work its way through to really like get to the end of this, where we'll see really what happens. But there is some wild shit going on. I know I've been talking about it, what's going on, specifically with the left-wing media. Fox News doing better than ever, I would say. Maybe it's because I go on there now sometimes. I mean, the last time I was on Fox News, Saturday, November 9th, highest rated episode of that show ever. Was it the election or was it me? That's for you to decide. I'm going to say it was because I went on there. International superstar Danny Polishchuk went on Fox News Saturday night, and then boom, just highest rated episode ever. But I digress. But the shit that's going on right now. And again, you know, I guess I'm in media. I still just consider myself a comedian at the end of the day. Just a clown. A literal nighttime clown. I only do clowning at night. I am not available. If anybody's ever seen comedy during the day, it stinks. It's not the time to do clowning, except for at Skankfest. Some of you have been to Skankfest, and you all know. Well, for those of you who have been to Skankfest, you know that the shows during the day there are actually better because everybody gets so fucked up that the shows at night become really bad. But otherwise, I'm just a nighttime clown. But I'm interested. I don't know if it's what fascination. Maybe it's my background. My Judaism just inherently makes me gravitate towards the media, right? But the left-wing media is having a full-on, just Fukushima-style nuclear meltdown right now. And it's something to behold. So this was the big news today. This is our lead-in for the show. Joe Scarborough. You guys know these two? You guys know these two? I'm sure some of you go, who the fuck are you talking about? I don't watch MSNBC, let alone at 8 in the morning. And we'll talk about that too. I don't know who's watching this shit. They get paid like a lot of people are watching this shit. A lot. But so today on Morning Joe, who famously, you'll remember Morning Joe and Mika Brzezinski, potentially a last name more difficult to pronounce than mine. How many consonants is this in a row? A lot of, I mean, I guess Y's don't count. But tough name. But anyways, so they're taking a lot of heat today. This is the big story. Because they, if you remember them from 2 weeks ago, famously said Donald Trump is a fascist and a second coming of Adolf Hitler. The Adolf Hitler you all know. I know you're thinking of that Adolf Hitler. That Adolf Hitler. They said that guy, if he wins, we're fucked. And they're right. Pardon my language. It's not that kind of show. I honestly talk, I'm like, what is this? This isn't terrestrial radio. This is YouTube. Fuck shit ass. See, I can just say it, right? But they were telling us that we're in a lot of trouble. It turns out they're actually the ones who are in a lot of trouble. They were telegraphing it, if you will. They were projecting their own bullshit onto us. Because they saw the tea leaves and they saw, you know what? We're actually in a lot of trouble if this guy wins, only because we've been so wrong. Everything we said has been wrong. And what are we going to do if he wins? But they were like, we're the mainstream media. Everybody watches us. We don't have anything to worry about. He's not going to win again, right? Surely they're not going to elect him again. Bang, he wins. Right. And so they go and meet with him this Friday. They go and have a little meeting with him. This Friday, just to, bury the hatchet. I guess that's what it would be, right? Bury the hatchet. Just say, hey, man, no hard feelings about all that Hitler stuff. We just want to be cool. If you start, because you have said that you were going to be prosecuting your opponents, the people who wronged you. So we just want to be like, hey, we're Hulk Hogan. This is, Joe Scarborough on TV and Joe Scarborough in real life. Those are two different people. This is kayfabe going on right here. We're just doing a bit, right? So they go meet with him in person at Mara Largo. Still haven't been invited there. Crazy. They go meet with him and everybody's pissed. Everybody is so mad. And they were just throwing a Hail Mary, We all saw that Washington Commanders game. Some of us did maybe. I don't know. But people are not happy with them for even you didn't even go meet with Hitler. You flew to Germany to do it. What were you thinking? By the way, how awkward must that have been? Like, I don't know. Because, Trump is like, hey, they want to meet with me. This will be fucking weird. Like, you ever had you're in a weird relationship with a lady or a man, if you're gay, or a woman, if you're not gay, and then things don't end well. She calls you the worst shit imaginable. She goes, you're a small dick, broke ass loser, and you'll never amount to anything. And she just says, she goes, your parents are ugly. Your family's ugly. You got bad genetics. You're going bald. You're fat. Just every horrible thing she says to you. And then a couple weeks later, she goes, hey, heard you got that promotion. Kind of behind on my rent. You want to meet up? And you go, yeah. I do want to meet up. I kind of want to see how this might go. I'm curious because I wasn't expecting to hear from you. Of all people, I wasn't expecting to hear from you. But so Trump is, decides he's going to be the bigger man. I mean, things are going pretty good for him. Got to concede. Things are going pretty good for him. He's like, yeah, what'll hurt? He's he sees things pretty far ahead too. So he goes, yeah, this is not going to go over well for you. Maybe if you're going to come here and just beg for me to not prosecute you, maybe you find a little soft spot in my heart. Maybe I spare you. Maybe. But he's like, when people find out about this, they're not going to like this. You're already dwindling MSNBC ratings, right? And I know the three of them were friends before Trump was in politics. But again, it's not even like, called the girlfriend and said you had a small dick and you were bald and fat and all that stuff. No. She had a cable news show and she said it every day for like 8 years. It wasn't like one thing we go, oh, she was, she was kind of angry. Women, they get emotional. You do. Right? It's not one of those things. It's every fucking day saying it, right? And it was to the point, too, where they were saying all this stuff, and then two different people kind of tried to kill Trump. Now, one guy, he was just milling about, might have just been hunting for gators on the golf course, but the other one, Thomas Matthew Crooks, he tried to kill him, and he almost succeeded. Now, you might think, fair enough if you think this. I kind of think this. It wasn't some person who was just radicalized by the rhetoric they read on MSNBC. It was probably some people in the deep state who are trying to avoid exactly what is happening right now. Trump back in power, doing crazy shit, right? But a lot of people are calling MSNBC MAGA-SNBC right now. That's how bad it's getting for them. So whoever's still watching, I guess they're really just trying to whittle it down to the diehards, because when those 25,000 people are left watching your show, those are the diehards. Those are the people where when you write a book and you're at a Borders, do they have Borders still? I don't know. I'm from Canada, so we have chapters. I guess Barnes & Noble would be the American. And you go, you're doing a book signing? Those 25,000 people, they're going to sign up. They're going to wait in line. They're going to buy your book. They're going to take a photo with you, and they're going to be excited, right? But over on this this new liberal answer to X, formerly known as Twitter, which is one of my least favorite things about him changing Twitter to X, is now when it's ever referred to in print, they always say X, formerly known as Twitter. People are fucking melting down. They cannot believe, because they're, it's just your favorite team. This is a team sport thing where your team just lay you down so bad. You're a Yankees fan, and then the Yankees lose to the Dodgers, and then you flip on the TV, and what the hell? Aaron Judge was having a beer with Shohei Ohtani. They were playing Russian roulette, gambling at 4:30 in the morning. Like it's the goddamn deer hunter. And you go, you're not supposed to do that. I thought you guys are supposed to hate each other. Right? But MSNBC and CNN's ratings are absolutely tanking. Like they are tanking. And, I guess the most fair thing to say was it's just a business decision. The execs at MSNBC go, hey, you got to go patch things over. And I don't know who this could even help. I don't know. Mark, lovely producer Mark says, we used to have a Borders in the USA, but B and Barnes & Noble shut them down. Good for you, Barnes & Noble. Would have just crushed the competition just like Trump would do, right? That's what he would do. He would just buy them and say, you're done, right? But again, this is probably just like a business decision where their executives are saying, hey, just go make amends here. Maybe some people who like Trump will watch MSNBC now. Maybe they'll watch you and they'll watch Rachel Maddow. But ironically, it's funny, and they'll watch Ari Melber or whatever the fuck, whoever that is, right? And so they did this. It's not going to work. This is just absolute desperation. I haven't, you don't really get to see. This is like Sam Bankman-Fried levels of desperation, where you're going all around and being like, hey, I got all these deals to make. I think I might be able to save this place. Right? But who's going on? Because the thing is, I'm actually curious, who was an MSNBC viewer? Because Fox News has had a huge spike. MSNBC, CNN tanking. I could see some people going over from CNN because CNN's kind of trying to go back to the middle. They have a bunch of conservative people on there, Scott Jennings, some other people. And it's not the worst thing to watch. I won't lie. It used to be CNN when it was just all just a left-wing circle jerk. Tough watch. But they brought those guys on. Not bad. But again, there's this thing called audience capture. I don't know if you're familiar with this. Essentially, the best example of this would be the YouTuber Nikado Avocado, who some of you are familiar with. He started off as like a vegan, and then he started eating food, and everybody's like, yeah, we like this. Yeah, more food. We want you to just stuff your fat fucking face. Well, it wasn't fat when it started, right? But they're like, just stuff your face, because once RFK Jr. is head of the HHS, you're not going to be allowed to do that. Mukbangs, that's just going to be illegal. We're going to be doing it'll be like porn theaters at Times Square in the 80s and 70s, where you're going to have to, if you want to watch a mukbang, once RFK Jr. gets confirmed, you're going to have to go to like a little fucking seedy theater. You're going to walk in through like a video store and go all the way to the back. And then like this little partition thing opens like a limo from the 80s. And there's just some fucking chick or some dude just feeding, just shoveling food into their face. And, and then you come back a month later and you just watch them get progressively fatter. But that's what it's going to be like. This is Trump's America. We're mukbanging in old porn theaters. That's what it's going to be, right? But so this audience capture thing, basically, he let his audience dictate. He goes, oh, this is the stuff they like. And then he just ate himself to the point of being 400 pounds. I don't think they said he lost weight or whatever, but anyways, it's not the point. The point is that you build an audience. You can't just move around like that. It's fucking Law and Order can't say, hey, you know what? We should be a comedy show now. No. Nobody watches Law and Order for the jokes. I mean, there were some funny, remember the famous Ice-T thing where it's like, you're gay. That was funny. But for the most part, you're not a comedy show. You can't just move around like that. Here are some of the ratings, which is, this is just an interesting insight into who even watches any mainstream media, left or right. So this is from last week. This is the most recent ratings. This is I guess this would be 2 weeks ago now. I don't know if they have. I couldn't find them for last week. MSNBC gets during the day 62,000 25 to 54-year-old viewers per episode. CNN gets 81,000. Fox gets 329,000. This is 25 to 44. This is the only thing they care about, right? They don't care about 18-year-olds watching their show. They don't care about 16. They don't care about that. Those people don't buy anything. This whole game is you show someone an ad, they buy something, right? And people over 54 years old, I guess they're buying, I don't even, it's probably too late to buy health insurance, or maybe health insurance, but like life insurance. You're like, well, you're fucking going to be almost dead soon. Right, so you have 62K, 81,000 for CNN. To prime time, MSNBC, 61K in that 25 to 50-year-old slot. CNN, little boost, 93,000. Fox, 522,000. Okay, totals. These are totals. So this is the most interesting part. Okay, 622,000 during the day for MSNBC, 636,000 at prime time. So basically, 500. What's that? 90? What's that? 62,000 minus 62, 622. So you're talking, that's 10% of their audience is under the age of 54. Like the people who watch this shit are, and the same with CNN, same with Fox. Fox is 3.7 million in prime time for viewers versus 522,000 of them are under the age of 54 years old. So if you ever wonder who watches this shit, because you don't, Nobody's watching this. I mean, if you did watch that shit, you'd be watching, I don't know what's on right now. Anderson Cooper? I have no idea. But you'd be watching that. So this is just geriatrics who watch this stuff. They're tuning out, which is not good, even though they're not even a valuable demographic. But they're fucking tuning out. But it's only old people who watch this shit. So essentially what we're doing is we're just watching the slow motion just death of all of these networks. And I'm not really sure how it plays out. I don't know if, do we need them? I guess everybody can just go social media to TikTok. I guess that's where people get their news now. 25 to 54-year-old. If you don't watch MSNBC because you have even some of a brain, you go and you watch TikTok, or you go to X or Blue Sky, right? And again, what they're doing with MSNBC, this is nothing more than an attempt to just hold on to as much power, status, and most importantly, money. Because Joe Scarborough makes $11 million a year. Mika makes $8 million. I think between the two of them, these are rounded figures. I think between the two of them, they make $20 million a year, which is what Anderson Cooper makes on his own. They make $20 million a year, these two clowns who have like a 1 or 2 hour show in the morning on MSNBC. Are You Garbage gets more viewers. They literally get more viewers for an episode. The boys at Are You Garbage, shout out, than MSNBC. They don't make $20 million. Where is this money coming from? I mean, it's not my business. I'm not a shareholder. I know that MSNBC is for sale. Maybe we set up a GoFundMe. Maybe we can buy it. I don't know. I want to talk about, because I mentioned this, Blue Sky. I don't know if you know what's going on, but there's a bit of an exodus, no pun intended. And I'll be opening the phone lines very shortly. Don't worry. But there's a little exodus from X in the since November 6th, I suppose. Mark says, not just Are You Garbage, Theo Von, Joe Rogan. Yeah. No. I didn't even put Theo Von and Joe Rogan into this category. They're not even in the, like, Joe Rogan does more numbers per episode than all shows on MSNBC combined. Like, you can't even, this is how crazy it is. You can't even compare them, right? Like, you can't even compare Theo Von. Theo Von, again, a night clown, does way more numbers than an entire network that has a budget. Like, MSNBC's, like, I go to the Fox News studios over here. I imagine MSNBC has something similar. These are real productions here. They have prime real estate, Midtown Manhattan, in these giant office buildings, like these skyscrapers. They have millions of dollars of equipment, hundreds of employees, and they can't do the same numbers as just some clown with a fucking $5,000 camera and a MacBook Pro, right? But so the migration over to Blue Sky is real. I know a lot of people, I don't know if you've checked into it. I've been going on there. They just announced actually today they hit 19 million users, which doesn't seem like a lot, and it's not, because I know Threads is like, we had 150 million users last night, but Threads doing something, they're doing some dark arts over at Thread, because Threads automatically makes me follow people because it's just based on something tied to your Instagram. So it's not really like true, but people are actually, they're like, you know what? We're sick of seeing all this Elon Musk and racism and all this shit and right-wing stuff. And they are moving and they're deactivating their accounts. Which is, funny enough, I was on there just before the show started. And then I was looking at I just scrolling through as you do. I don't really use it, but I like taking the temperature of different places just to see, what's going on. I feel like that's what I'm supposed to do. Like, I'm on there so you don't have to, basically. You can go on there. Tons of gay shit. It's really gay on there. And I'm not saying that in any sort of, like, it's a lot of gay stuff, like actual. There's no euphemism here that I'm using. It's really gay. A lot of weird anime porn stuff. And this is just in your feed. I don't follow anybody, so I get the default discovery feed. And it's really gay, right? But so there's someone posted, they go, hey, Blue Sky has stock, right? And I go, oh, you can buy shares of Blue Sky? I actually, crazy enough, I saw that, and I go, it's like 40 cents a share. I go, you know what? That might be worth a little punt. Buy some Blue Sky stock, right? So then I go look it up. It's up 10x in the last week, basically, the last 10 days. It's gone up 1,000%. It was 4 cents. Now it's 40 cents. And you go, not bad. Some people are betting on Blue Sky, right? Turns out, completely unrelated company. It's a company called Blue Sky. It's some crypto penny stock out of Toronto. Shout out. And people either don't care. Either people are buying this and they go, I don't care. I just know that people will buy this stock because they want to buy shares of Blue Sky. It's not public or anything, but you can buy a company called Blue Sky that's like in tech, close enough. I mean, again, nothing to do with one another whatsoever. Blue Sky, the publicly traded penny stock piece of shit company, had to issue a press release where they said, we haven't had any change to this was like a week ago. We haven't had any change to our business. And then they have to be like, nothing happened. We don't know why our stock went up. Obviously they know why. But if they put out a press release saying, hey, you guys got the company completely wrong, it's the wrong thing, then everybody sells the stock and they just lose like, a couple $100 million in market capitalization. So they're just being like, I don't know. Who knows? Maybe some hot new cryptocurrencies coming down the pipe. But yeah, so I am annoyed with Blue Sky. Like you I don't know how much you guys are on social media, but it is somewhat my profession. I need to be on there. And I don't like having to come up with a tweet and then post it 7 different places. Can the porn people please sort this out? Porn people, I'm looking at you, not in the eyes. Not in the eyes. I'm not looking at you in the eyes, porn people. But I'm just looking in your general direction here. Because famously, in the 80s and 90s, there used to be Betamax and there's VHS. If you remember, there's VHS and there was Betamax. There was 2 different types of tapes. And I remember it was very annoying because we had a Betamax and it was like a tape, but it was just a little smaller. And then all of a sudden VHS showed up. And the reason VHS won is because that's what porn decided to use. Porn goes, we're going to be VHS people. Boom. Bye-bye Betamax. Hello VHS. So can the porn people just figure this out? Just pick one, preferably X. Because I don't want to have to do any of these other ones, right? I do like going on Blue Sky just to see all these like crazy, insane people lose their minds. I don't like the gay stuff though. Not loving all the gay stuff on there. The anime porn it's not anime porn, but it's very sexually suggestive cartoons of different animals. It's weird. A lot of cat photos, a lot of landscape photos, not landscape like mode, like just here's a tree. So that's kind of shit they're doing over how they're coping over on Blue Sky. And again, like it is a real thing because you remember like when all the social media was banning people and then Gab and Parler showed up and then you're like, this is, you can't say all these things on Twitter when it was called Twitter. So we're going to go over to Gab and Parler and you go over and you go, there's nobody fucking on here. Blue Sky is not that. There are lots of people on Blue Sky. I have liberal friends who are like, man, I'm losing so many followers every day on Twitter. Reason being, people are deactivating their accounts and they're leaving for good. And I'm somewhat worried about it, to be honest. I don't think it's good to have these just separate ideological echo chambers. And I'm worried that X is going to turn into that. I'm legitimately worried. And I'm sure many of you are not. But I don't want X just to turn into 4chan. 4chan is 4chan. X was supposed to be the town square. Remember? That was the whole thing. X was the town square. But if half the people leave, then you go, what is this even? What are we doing? Now, maybe they could, I'm a big Elon Musk fan. I think he's a smart guy. I'm certain that he can maybe, course correct this. Maybe add some new features. They have been cranking out new features. They are very smart over there. I don't think they're stupid. I think they're probably having this same discussion, hopefully, there. And I'm hoping that they fix this. Obviously, they got what they needed. They won the election. But if this continues this way, and because here's the thing, the people on the left never left. They never went to another app because there was nowhere to go. They were just like, you know what? This place is hell for us. I hate all the shit that's on here. That's in my For You feed, even though I don't follow any content like this. I don't know why I'm just seeing a guy get electrocuted and then another guy get decapitated. I mean, I'll tell you, I don't mind Blue Sky for that. 100% less murders on there. It's literally, there's zero just snuff films on Blue Sky. But these people aren't coming back unless either X gets so good or Blue Sky gets so bad. And it is something that I'm worried about. And, maybe this is what happened to cable news, where maybe this is just the same thing that happened to cable news. And this is the new cycle where Blue Sky is MSNBC and Threads is CNN and X becomes Fox News. But I don't want X to become Fox News. I want X to just be Twitter and X and stuff. I want everybody to be on there. That's what makes it good. So anyways, all right, we're going to open the phone lines here for you. And we got our guests coming in. Top of the hour, Jack Kelley. We're going to be talking all about Atlantis and his film, The Atlantis Puzzle, which you can rent on YouTube. Rent or purchase, I believe, but you can definitely rent it. But the phone lines are open. 1-888-949-2969. While we're waiting for you, please do me a favor. Like the stream. Subscribe to the channel. It's the least that you can do. It really is the least that you can do. Sorry, this is the first time I'm checking. I've made a point not to look at the chat throughout the thing because I get sidetracked and then I lose my train of thought. So this is the first time I'm checking in on the chat. Someone says X has been 4chan for 8 years. It hasn't been, though. It hasn't been 4chan for 8 years. But it's getting closer to that, for sure. I really think it was that Nick Fuentes tweet that really just sent everyone packing. Man, I'm like, it's just a troll, but people really didn't like it. But anyways, please like and subscribe to the channel. If you're an audio listener, please make sure to follow the podcast on Spotify, Apple, leave a review, all that stuff. If you would like to support this little show that I do, please consider joining the channel here or ideally signing up at patreon.com/lowvaluemail. You get access to Low Value Mail Overtime, which is the show that happens at 11:30. It's an hour. You can either watch it live, call in, or you can just catch it the next day. We just cover some articles, some stuff that I'll be talking about. On the after show is Joe Biden firing up the old Ukraine-Russia conflict. We got Jake Paul Tyson fight, which was dog shit. I'll not have a lot of thoughts. And I know this goes against everything in my being, but we got a little Patreon finally decided to enter the year 2021, and I'm now allowed to use promo codes. So from now until the end of November 30th at 11:59 p.m., you can sign up for a Patreon annual membership and get 25% off using code LVM2024. That's capital L, capital V, capital M, 2024. I think it's normally $5 a month, which is like $60 a year. They already give you 12% off of that, which is, I don't know, $50 or something. And then you get another 25% off. I mean, my producers over here are telling me I'm not even allowed to do this. Are you sure? Well, I'm doing it, okay? So you'll just have to figure it out. I'm sorry. But so anyways, Black Friday sale, patreon.com/ MAIL/low value mail, MAIL, 25% off an annual membership. Most importantly, it helps the show. It helps me know that you like the show. It's a vote for the show, right? So please consider doing that, or you can join the channel. I saw a bunch of you. Shout out to Vince. Shout out to everybody who just, Vince the man, gifted the channel, and shout out to Justin for being a member. Appreciate you all. And shout out to Lord Pepsi. He says, for me, it's no amnesty. Always remember their ire. Thank you for your super chat. I do appreciate them all. And then we got a new episode of The Bathhouse tomorrow night, live at 9 p.m. from the Stand Comedy Club. We'll be back in the green room. I got Francis Foster from Trigonometry will be returning to the show. We got a couple other people. Should be a fun time. So please check that show out. And then if you want to see me live, Albany, December 4th, Hartford, December 5th. And I got some candidates coming up, DannyComedy.com. All right, let's take a couple calls. One moment, please, while we get to the phone lines. Oh, that was exhausting. I need a sip of water here. Hello, you're on Low Value Mail. Who am I speaking with?
Hello, this is Cole.
Cole, what's up, man? How you doing?
I'm good. I just wanted to congratulate you on your marriage and everything.
Thank you, Cole. I appreciate it. It was like 4 months ago, but thank you.
Yeah, and I love the boys.
And it was to a woman.
Oh yeah, that's good.
Yeah,
that's
it's pretty sick. Pretty sick, to be honest.
Bosie is pretty nice though, so I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know.
So I'm
never tried
engineer.
it. You're a mechanical engineer?
Oh yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm from Georgia, so I just wanted to see if you wanted to know anything. I don't know how many people call in like this.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to know stuff. So what does a mechanical engineer do exactly? Like are you building bridges and whatnot?
No, that's civil engineering.
Oh, okay.
For mechanical engineering,
build like an engine?
Mainly, yeah, internal combustion engines. That's one of the things. But you could also do electricity and manufacturing.
Okay, I got a question for you here. How susceptible is the power grid to some sort of EMP or some sort of some sort of attack on our power grid?
Yeah, I wouldn't say that's my professional expertise and everything, but
Okay.
I've heard some people talk about how people in the military talk about how if China wanted to, they could shut down our power grid for a little short period, but we could shut theirs down indefinitely, maybe.
Right, and who wants that smoke, right? I guess that would be the
For real.
that would be the thing.
I mean, Taiwan wants to smoke, I don't know.
But they don't want it from America. Nobody wants it from America. But I was
No.
listening to Kash Patel, who I very much hope will be the new director of the FBI, on Sean Ryan's podcast, and he was saying that is like one of the biggest weaknesses in the United States is the power grid. It's the thing that's the most susceptible to some sort of attack that can be somewhat effective, I guess.
Yeah, and it's pretty important for everything. So
Oh yeah.
we should probably do something.
Do you have backup generators, anything like that? Is this something you're worried about?
No, I think when I graduate and everything, I'm a senior right now.
Oh,
but
you're not. Oh, you made yourself
I
out to
should
be someone
probably-
who is currently an engineer. You're just in school.
Well, yeah, I know a good amount of engineers and stuff.
Oh, okay.
I've known people who work for defense contractors and other things too.
Gotcha. And so what kind of job are you going to try and get once you're done?
Well, I had a internship at a chemical company once, so I'll probably try to work for them. But
What
if
kind
Trump goes back into office
of? What do you mean
and
if?
has bonuses, well, who knows what's going to happen in these months?
So you're a
They
bit of
don't-
a conspiracy theorist I'm talking to right now.
I mean,
here.
they don't like him too much, I don't know
No.
what's going on with Poly Market. What's the betting odds that he
I
makes it
think
in?
it was I honestly want to say a couple weeks ago it was like there was a 5% chance that he would not be. I don't know if it's still up, but there was like a 5% chance that he would not be inaugurated, I believe, which seems pretty high. Oh, here we go. Let's see. Who will be inaugurated
getting up there in age.
as president currently? Donald Trump 94.5% chance. So that's like, if you think, 5.5% chance that like that kind of thing, like a 1 out of 9, what is that? 1 out of 19, 1 out of 20, roughly.
1 out of 20.
Whatever, 1 out of 19. Yeah, whatever. Like that shit happens a million times a day in New York City. That's not crazy. That should be, in any other, like, I don't know if they're saying that's just the odds of him just having some sort of medical event is 5%, 5.5%.
He is getting up there in age.
Yeah. Like, I don't know if you took any 78-year-old and you go, any 78-year-old has a 5% chance of being dead in 2 months. And that's what it's based off of.
Yeah. Supposedly he's healthy, but he eats all those seed oils, RFK. I don't know he might try to convert him to the healthy lifestyle.
I don't think that's one of those things. It's like the Warren Buffett thing where you're like, you can't at some point, he's not just going to start eating salads. He's fucking 78, man. Honestly. And also genetics. Everybody talks about the seed oils, seed oils, all that stuff. Genetics are so much bigger of a factor. Like both my grandparents, my grandmother lived till she was 99. My grandfather lived till he was like 93, I think. They did not. They ate seed oils all the fucking time. The only difference is they didn't eat a lot of like super processed food. They cooked all the food they ate because they were from Russia. So it's kind of like, old school, and they walked and stuff. But they definitely, my grandmother never thought anything about seed oils. She wasn't just like, oh, seed oils are bad. She probably ate seed oils her entire fucking life without thinking about it. And she lived to 99. I do believe at some point it's just genetics. And then obviously if you just eat like shit, like if you're just, the average American eating whatever, 4,000 calories a day and getting zero exercise, you're like, that's probably way worse for you than any damage you could do by just eating the odd seed oil. But yeah, anyways.
Yeah, they strengthened themselves with the lead-based paint and lead and gasoline, so I don't know.
I was told that shit's bad for you too. I was told that shit'll kill you too, and it didn't work. All right, I gotta let you go. Thanks, man. All right, let's take another caller here. We're gonna be back at the top of the hour with our guest, so don't go anywhere. Hello.
Hello.
Yo, what's up?
Hey, Danny, it's Tim.
Tim, how's it going, man?
Good, pal. How you doing?
Very good, very good. Can you turn down your?
So
I keep
got a
hearing
couple
myself.
things. Really?
Yeah, I don't know if you have a speaker there.
I don't have anything.
Oh.
I have nothing playing. I don't
All
know
right,
why that is.
Don't worry about that. Maybe some glitch with Zoom.
Okay. So I had a couple things I wanted to get into. So I've been like really into Reddit lately.
Okay.
Seeing these people with the most deranged fucking ideas. Like the biggest thing is RFK. Like you'll see a post like, "Oh, the maggots want to ban food dye. They think it's going to kill them. Oh, and also they think trans people don't exist." It's like, how is RFK banning food dye like become this right-wing conspiracy theory?
It's just they're doing it's exactly how Trump derangement syndrome kind of was the first time around, where anything Trump says, you go, we do the opposite, right? They go, we just like we just want to do the opposite. So if RFK says we're just gonna get y'all eating salads, they're just like, no, we're eating seed oils and all that shit. That's just what we're doing now. Again, the dyes,
why have them?
Yeah, I don't know, because the thing is, some dyes that they have in America are banned in Europe, but it's also like vice versa. Some in Europe are banned here. I'm sure they're not.
But I think
good
this is a
for
big
you.
disparity. I think there's a lot more banned in Europe than there is here.
Here's my thoughts on it. Snap our fingers. We ban all food dyes. It changes nothing, in my opinion. Nothing will change. There will be no appreciable
that's just one
change.
example, right?
The thing is, you need to get people eating better and more active. That's the only really thing that'll like really move the needle here to actually like make this not the fattest country on earth. And it's not going to be the fucking dyes. You want to ban sugar? Okay, I'm listening. I mean, people aren't going to like it, and you can't do that. But That would work.
You can't ban sugar.
No, you can't ban sugar. I know there was a bunch of cities, like municipalities, who
You'd go to a fucking war if you ban sugar.
I know. And I'm
you
not
want to talk about a civil war.
and I'm not being serious about it, but I know there were a couple cities who they put in like a soda tax or whatever to.
I mean, you remember what was it, Giuliani with the big gulps?
Yeah, right. So that I understand. I mean, I was saying this for a while with the, I probably said this 2 or 3 years ago when inflation started kicking up. And I said it actually might be, in a weird way, a net benefit because a lot of super processed foods, they didn't raise the prices on them. All they did was just give you less of them. So if you're the type of person who goes and buys, like, say, a bag of Doritos, there's just less calories in it now. It's the same price. And assuming you don't go be like, oh, that didn't satiate me, so I'm going to go buy a second bag, and now it's even worse. But if you're just like, yeah, I just go buy like a small bag of chips, you're like, well, now it's 20% less calories or something.
Yeah. So I just found it funny that, like, the very innocuous thing of, like, hey, why is this chemical in our food? And they're like, fucking maggot motherfucker.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, again, dude, if you like Reddit, go on Blue Sky. I'm telling you, it's deranged city. Like, the people.
So I'm literally on no social media. I just downloaded Reddit I had a very specific video game question, and every time I Googled it, it was pointing me to Reddit. So I downloaded Reddit, and then I got entranced and just like, I don't subscribe to any pages or anything. I'm just reading the popular thing and just seeing the most deranged takes on everything, you know?
Well, if you wanna just take a minute and go check out Blue Sky, it's even more deranged than Reddit, I think.
I might have to. Did you see the Tyson fight?
I did. It was terrible.
It was sad.
It was
a bummer.
I mean, it was one of those things where you go, yeah, this is about, like, I think, I'm curious if anybody was, because I saw the final betting numbers were released, and 2/3 of all bets were on Tyson. And I think the premise was everybody just wanted to watch Mike Tyson knock Jake Paul out.
Everyone wanted it to be a 3-second fight of him just coming out and
just killing Jake Paul. But
yeah,
he
exactly.
like, you know, Roy Jones, the Rosie Perez thing was weird. I was like, I was hearing her and I go, is that Rosie Perez?
How is she involved in boxing? Was her father a boxer or something? Well, I couldn't understand why she was there.
I don't know. You could, regardless of if her father was a boxer, she hasn't been famous in 30 years since White Men Can't Jump.
But they kept talking to her like, oh, the queen of boxing. They kept like referring to her as some boxing expert or something. And I was like,
but I mean, you could have got some chick who was like a professional boxer, who, like, you know, like you could have got the Roy Jones Jr. equivalent of a female boxer. I'm sure many of them exist. And,
did you watch the whole card?
No, I saw the chick fight. That was pretty good. I saw half of the chick fight.
The chick was the best fight of the night. It was they were fucking going at it. Man.
Yeah, I caught the end of it. So I'm just looking it up. It says she's a diehard boxing fan. I don't know. That doesn't.
That's it.
I'm curious how the fuck she got.
All right, I got a few more things to ask you. I don't want to take up
one more
too
thing
much
quickly.
Of your time.
Yeah, one more thing.
Okay. All right. Who do you think would be the funniest press secretary?
Tim Dillon. I tweeted it.
Tim Dillon. I was thinking Dave Smith might be.
No,
Tim would be good.
No, because
Dillon might be the funniest.
Dave would take it seriously. I think Dave would be getting in these fights. Yeah, I want someone who's like dicking around, like coming out with the glasses. Michael Malice would be good as well. Obviously, Tony Hinchcliffe. That is such a job for a comedian, though.
Oh, you know, Tony Hinchcliffe will be so funny after all that fucking.
But Trump just gave it to some chick who looks like a fucking like car show model.
Oh, you already gave it to someone?
Yeah, some chick. I don't know her name, but she literally looks like a model from like a car show.
Oh, that's awesome.
Which, you know, people aren't going to be complaining about that too much, but it's just, she's not going to be funny.
No,
it'll just
it's
be her.
going to be upgrade than that chick, Jean Pierre or whatever.
Yeah.
He is insufferable.
Yeah, but again, I said it, I don't know, maybe I said it on here, but like, she's just an actor. Like those people, like her and fucking Peter Ducey or whatever that dude is, if they're in private at some function, they're friendly with one another.
They're probably like, hey, next week I'll say this and you say that.
Yeah. Like they're acting that way because they know it's being recorded. If it wasn't, they wouldn't behave that way. All right, I gotta let you go. Thanks, man.
I would love to see them get married.
That
comes
I
out.
don't see happening, but that
But
would
no,
be
neither do I. But it'd be a funny plot twist.
sure. All right, thanks, man. Okay, I don't know what's been going on with YouTube, but every episode for the last fucking 2 months, I get one of these errors saying YouTube is not receiving enough video to maintain smooth streaming. So if it starts buffering, I apologize for you. Also, we're not going to get to every caller. I apologize to that, but you can call back later in the show or on low value mail overtime. All right, let's take another call here. Get to this. We'll try and get 2 more in. Hello. Oh, now it says excellent connection. All right, this person's not picking up. You got to be quicker. Please be fast. We're on limited time. Hello.
Yo. What's
Yo.
going on, Danny?
What's up, man? Oh, see, now 2 of people.
How you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm all right. I can't complain.
Yeah. You.
I was wondering.
Yeah, go ahead. Chad, everybody, if people don't know, Chad, he does the music for this show and the Bathhouse, the outro music. Chad, turn up on YouTube.
Yes.
Check out Light Switch.
Yes. Check out Light Switch. Check out Psycho.
Yeah, I mean, everybody knows who's watches this show knows Light Switch, and they probably walk around their house just singing it like I do.
Hey, I definitely appreciate that.
Dude, it is a verifiable banger. I will say that.
For sure, man. For sure. Yeah, man. I was wondering because my man Ben Shapiro has been pointing out the fact that Joe Biden, since the election, right, has gotten extremely happy, or like I don't know, like, and like I said, I just see every time I seen him now, it just seemed like he's like ear to ear smiling.
Yeah, well, I mean, he didn't want to leave.
Yeah, what do you think?
I think. Look,
you think he didn't want to leave?
No, hell no. I think in his mind, even though they released some sort of internal polling after the election, and again, I don't know if this was if this leak was verified or if it was just a rumor, but apparently they had internal polling where Joe Biden, if he ran against Trump was going to win over 400 electoral college seats, way more than against Harris. But I think in his mind, he's just like, I'll do better than her. And who wants to not be the president? You know, like it's the top job in the world. And he essentially got forced out of it. Probably in his mind, I mean, he's like, I'm still there, I'm still sharp.
But he kind of forced himself out because he had that horrible debate. And everybody's saying how, his brain is pretty much, it's done.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, I agree from anybody watching it. You go, yeah, that looked really bad. And that was a bad debate. But maybe in his mind, he's just like, I don't know. I didn't think it was that bad. He's like, just give me another one. Like, I'll pull it together. Didn't he say something where he stayed up too late, or it was too late, or he like didn't nap or something? I can't remember what his excuse was, but it was something like that. But
that's interesting because I felt like he pretty much was. I felt like I don't know. I didn't think he wanted the job again for real, and that's kind of where I feel like he.
Oh, I definitely.
Happy now cause,
I mean, his family business is selling influence, essentially, right? So there's a lot of money in just influence peddling, and once you're not the president anymore, you lose that ability to sell your influence. So I don't think he loves that part of it. He was getting all this money from, Burisma in Ukraine. So was Hunter Biden, all that stuff. And it's kind of over now. I don't think he loves that. I think it's like embarrassing the way he was kind of forced out. I mean, I can't think of I'm sure it's happened before, but like what incumbent president is not allowed to run again? You know what I mean? Like, when the fuck does that happen?
Well, I don't think it's right. Yeah, I don't think it's happened. I don't think it's happened many times. If it has,
if it happened like 100 years ago or some shit. But it's not something that's common, that's for sure. That's my thoughts, is he just wasn't pumped about it, and he didn't like being forced out. And so then when Kamala lost, he kind of was like a little pumped about it, a little bit of sour grapes, I guess you could say.
Yeah, I guess so. Hey, I was just thinking about it. Isn't it crazy I think if it's counted up right, Trump has gotten the most votes collectively throughout these last 3 elections than any other presidential candidate ever, right?
I'm not sure. Yeah, maybe. I will say it looks like he's not going to win the popular vote, though. It looks like because it's still crazy.
Really?
Well, California has still not finished counting. They're still have 6% of their votes out. And he's currently, based on the Associated Press, he's exactly on the nose at 50%. And that's going to be skewed hugely to the Democrats because it's California. So I wouldn't be surprised if once this is all done, and for some people have basically provided estimates of what they think once it's fully counted. It seems like he's probably going to wind up with 49.8 or 49.9% of the popular vote. So, which will piss him off a lot. He's going to fucking hate that. But I don't know. Yeah, I mean, he got a lot of. I mean, again, he definitely did win. There's no doubt about that, and he won by every metric. But it seems like they're just maybe one way to stick it to him is they're going to be you only got 49.9% of the vote, so then he can't say he won the popular vote for one thing. But I wonder how that works on Polymarket, because Polymarket, I think they resolved their popular vote bet and said he won it.
But they may be calling it too early without California, right?
So there's a bet on Polymarket. Yeah, I don't know. There's a thing on Polymarket right now. I just searched it. It's very low volume, but it has it only has $311,000, but it says he only has a 2% chance of getting over 50% of the popular vote. So it sounds like he's not going to. No, it sounds like he's not going to get it. But then there was a popular vote bet because that French trader who made $85 million, he voted for Trump to win the popular vote, and I believe they just resolved it and paid everybody who picked him. So. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know about that, and maybe that'll.
That's great. Right.
Yeah, but I mean, again, they're not going to.
Did you see?
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just going to ask. Did you see? I think didn't he make Linda McMahon his chief of staff?
No, Linda McMahon is commerce, I think. Something or Small Business Administration. She was the head of the Small Business Administration in his last one, though. She right. was the head of the Small Business. Yeah, she was the head of the Small Business Administration in his last presidency. Yeah, the 25th administrator from 2017 to 2019. So she only lasted 2 years. But I mean, he's been friends with Vince McMahon for I think a very long time because he's loves wrestling. So. But
well, I mean, yeah, he's been friends with Vince, but I mean, Vince and Linda are estranged, aren't they?
Yeah, but that was only recently. That was only in the last. I think she left him 2 years ago or something.
I thought it was a long time.
Well, Wikipedia says that they are still legally married, but I thought it was when all that crazy shit came out with that chick where he had all the dildos with names. Different name dildos and all that stuff, and I think that's.
Oh yeah.
I think she left him then, but it seems like she's. Yeah, it says right here. Reuters says she's the front runner to lead Trump's Commerce Department, so she's going to be in the mix somehow. I don't know how qualified she is to be a small business head, but she's going to be in there.
I mean, look, as long as he doesn't start appointing Kanye to anything, I think we good. Linda McMahon seems like she was. Doing a good job.
Remember 3 years ago when Kanye 2024 and there was there might be a chance, or 2 years ago when you're maybe Kanye could win this thing.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we were all suckers for that one. All right, Chad, I gotta let you go, man. We gotta go to the break.
All right, man. It's been cool. Yeah, man. Peace.
Good talking to you. Chad turn up, everybody. All right, we're going to go to the break right now, and we'll be back with Jack Kelley in about 5 minutes talking about the Atlantis Puzzle. In the meantime, watch a clip from last week's episode of The Bathhouse. And here's the thing. This is a little intro to this. But on The Bathhouse and Low Value Mail, only thanks to the callers, to you, the callers, some of you, we do real citizen journalism on here. I know it seems like it's just all talk about dildos and conspiracies, but Pablo called in on The Bathhouse last week. If you ever watched The Bathhouse, if you haven't watched it, you should. But if you've never seen it, Pablo's a regular caller. He's a Mexican-American, born in America, from California. And he was telling us all about how none of his family cares about getting deported. And I don't think you'll catch, because it's a longer clip. We're not going to watch the whole thing. But he talks about how he literally knows illegal aliens in California who voted illegally for Donald Trump. I always, before that, I go, no, nobody's actually voting for illegal aliens. Surely aren't voting. They're not actually voting. They just are living their lives, making money, living in America, trying not to get deported. He's like, no. He's like, some of them do vote, and he knows personally ones that were voting and voting for Trump. And he's also like, none of my family who are illegals care about getting deported, because if they get deported, they just come back. It's that easy. All right. We will see you very shortly. Enjoy this clip from last week's episode of The Bathhouse. Be back soon.
Hello.
Hey, what's up?
How's it going, Danny?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing great, excited, happy. My boy Donnie T won me some money.
Nice.
It couldn't be better.
You bet on him?
I bet. I put a G board down on my boy Donnie T.
Nice.
Got another G. I'm a grand up. The first president that's ever gotten me money. I couldn't be happier.
Congrats.
I'd say it's a pretty successful start.
Yeah. So you sounds like you're pumped, and you're
This country's dog shit. Just complete fucking dog. I mean, I'm happy that you won money, obviously. It's like that's the best that one of these people are going to do for you.
So Pablo,
Maybe you win $200.
Pablo, you are a Hispanic. You are a Hispanic man from California.
Yes.
Do you have
Correct.
any? Did you vote for Donald Trump?
Yeah.
Do you have any undocumented members of your family?
Oh yeah, plenty.
Are you undocumented?
No, he's not.
Listen, people are
realize
complicated.
what's
No,
happening.
I don't know.
I was born here,
I mean, the
but
guy's
I was
got
born
free
here,
will.
but I have plenty of undocumented. I have plenty of undocumented family members. What do you want to know?
Now,
I won't tell you their names.
Yeah, I don't. We don't need their names or anything. But have you spoken with any of them? How are they feeling about this? Because that's the one thing. The news, everybody's talking about this, like undocumented people. We haven't heard from any of them because obviously they don't want to be public about any of this stuff. Have you spoken with any of them?
Okay, so I'll tell you. Yeah, I'll tell you about the most important one. So I have he's not my uncle. He's my dad's cousin.
Okay.
I don't know what the fuck it's called. Either way, but they're the same age. He's been deported 3 times already, and he just keeps coming over. And that's all he said. He said, "Yeah, if they deport me, I'll just come back."
And he sneaks in like with a coyote?
Yeah.
But what if
Yeah,
Trump?
funny.
What if Trump seals up the border, like really seals it up and makes
They
it hard?
don't seal up the border.
Yeah, they
They
need to.
don't seal up the border perfectly.
Right. So they'll always be like holes where they can get back in.
Yeah,
So-
don't they drop them into the canal in Tijuana? That's what I
think
heard.
the
when I
uncle's on
lived down
level
there.
5, by the way.
There's
Like,
so there's
he's ahead
so
of
there's
it.
plenty of different ways.
Santa Fe, New
So there's plenty of
Mexico.
different ways to get through the border. The easiest
Yeah.
way is to just go across
Yeah,
the border in front of border security. We've done it before without our passports. If they don't ask you for your passport, you just go through.
Is your studio?
Wait, they don't ask you
down
for your. You can
in
just
the
walk
East Coast, or
by
where
border
you at?
guards, and they'll be like, just depending on if they.
No. You go in your car. You
Oh,
wait.
okay.
You wait the line in the line the whole way,
I
and they
lived
ask
in
you
New
a
York
couple
for about
questions.
decades, so-
Sometimes they ask you for your passport. Sometimes they don't.
That's into Mexico,
Nah, mostly
right?
green.
No.
No, that's into America.
No. Dude,
Yeah.
it's like 4 hours in line to get back from Tijuana into America.
Yeah,
And,
the
and
Newtown
sometimes they
Creek,
don't
which
ask
is,
you
like,
for your
the most
passport.
polluted,
Sometimes they just go. They ask you a
waterway
couple
in
of
the
questions.
world
Do you have
after
any
the,
illegal fruits,
iguanas.
vegetables, plants? And,
Do they ask you if you're an
contraband, whatever.
American citizen? Because that's crazy.
Yeah.
If you drive into the United States from
Hold on,
Canada,
taking off.
Yeah, if you drive into the United States from Canada, they ask you for your passport every single time. I've
Yeah,
never
Canada's
not.
pretty strict. I remember when I first went to Mexico
sure.
and I was in line for a while to
What'd
get
you have
in
for
there,
breakfast this
and there was
morning?
like two girls. I finally got to the actual gate that where
Yeah.
they check your identity and everything. And there's like two 16-year-old
Yeah, no worries.
girls are like on
Sounds
their
good.
phones as the border patrol in
Right,
Mexico.
'cause what do they care?
And I'm waiting for them to kind of guide me, and they're just looking at me like, "Are you gonna go?" And
Yeah,
I'm like,
yeah.
"Oh, I'm sorry that you."
Oh my
wanna
God, stupid,
check-"
go, stupid.
Yeah, yeah.
God,
Yeah, it was
Jesus,
incredible.
come to our country.
So basically, people you know who are undocumented, they're not stressed about this at all. Do you now? Here's another thing.
No.
Have you ever heard of an undocumented person voting illegally? Because this is a big
Yes.
discussion too. Really?
Yes.
They actually go out of their way to
Don't
illegally
get
vote.
mad. They
Well,
They're
I
not
always,
going out of their
lose.
way. They just voted.
but they're
The illegal immigrants here, like the ones you're thinking of, are the ones that like are living in Section 8 housing and don't really have like a name or anything. The ones I'm talking about have fake names, fake social security numbers, fake everything.
Dude, yeah, my mom's office is all like the people in the warehouse all were like undocumented people. They just got fake social security cards and shit like that.
Yeah,
the
but
whole
I-
entire
see,
thing.
I always
that's
assume-
how they get paychecks.
Yeah,
with
yeah.
the fake social security cards.
See, I always assumed that they were like, doing this stuff, but they're not going to go to the extent of voting.
I mean,
No, the uncle that I'm talking about, he's lived here since before I was born.
Okay,
Like
so
he's been here for over 30 years.
Yeah.
He got deported 3 times and he just came back every single time.
What was the most recent deportation? And how does he keep getting caught to get deported? He has a criminal issue?
No, he doesn't have a criminal issue. It's just that every once in a while No, he's not raping it.
Nah, I'm just
He's one of those he keeps getting audited by the IRS because he starts businesses.
Does ICE
He's a high functioning illegal immigrant. He comes over, he starts businesses, he makes a lot of money, and then he doesn't do paperwork properly because he's an illegal immigrant. And the
Can you
IRS
talk to
comes
my
on it and they go,
stepson?
"Hey, this shit doesn't."
So he gets audited, and then through the course of an audit, they go, "You're here illegally," and then they involve
He's
ICE
got to
and
stop
deport
doing
him?
the thing that you do.
But it sounds
when you
like
have
he's
a
just like
citizenship.
it's a minor inconvenience. to
ICE
him.
just knows him as like Tommy. Like,
It's
Tommy,
exactly
come
that.
on,
They know him by name.
let's go.
It sounds like a board game, where you just got to go back 2 spaces.
Yeah,
Like the
yeah.
penalty, he just goes, "All right."
Essentially, yes.
Yeah, and just goes back 2 spaces.
Essentially
and-
that. It's exactly that. He lost the houses. He lost the last 3 houses, and then he just comes back. He starts in their business. He buys a new one.
That's his problem.
See, that's
starting
like
a
the
business.
The credit system here is so easily to rig. As long as you have a business, you can start buying anything you want under a business credit.
Right.
wow.
But that's how he's getting caught, though, because he's got to
But he-
fill out a lot of
Yeah,
paperwork.
but he doesn't care.
So
He should
so
get
the
better
reason-
at
so the
paperwork,
recent one,
though.
So the recent one was his kids are.
I'm doing great. It's a Monday night. Good time to talk about Atlantis. I think this is one of those cases that, as we were making this documentary, we just kept going deeper and deeper into the research. There's just layer after layer after layer of stuff, right? So to try and peel back that onion to get to the truth, I think it's sort of become this, it's like the Godzilla of conspiracy series, right? So it's sort of people broadcast everything that you can possibly imagine onto this, right? It's like a symbol for all things outlandish and far out. No, sounds like a bourbon or something. Yeah. Yeah, I think it's changed over time, right? So I think for people who don't know, the backstory is Plato wrote about a war between very ancient Greeks at the dawn of the Holocene, 9600 BC, against the evil Atlantean Empire. So a lot of people thought this was just an allegory, and then starting kind of in the 1800s, people actually started trying to piece together and imagine, say, hey, well, we found Troy, we found Mycenae, we keep finding all these places we thought were mythical. Maybe Atlantis is real too. So basically, the mainstream thinking, and there was this guy who wrote a book called Atlantis, the Antediluvian World. And that had this idea that Atlantis was a lost continent in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean that sank overnight, and there was this whole missing.
Sorry, hold on. Let me.
Yeah,
I accidentally muted myself. I'm an idiot. All right, I'm unmuted now. I was muted that whole time. Literally, my worst nightmare happens almost every episode. It is called low value mail. It's not called high value mail. But now we're unmuted. I apologize for that. You see, the reason I was muted too is because last 2 weeks during the break, people could hear me talking to the guest. So then I was like, and then I muted it. Last time I turned my audio down and that didn't work. And then I was like, I'll mute it this time. And then I did both. Anyways, we're back. So I'm sorry. We have to start this all over again. Because people heard you talking, but they didn't hear me talking. Thankfully, it was only 2 minutes. But so you cover Atlantis. We were talking about that. I'm sure people heard your answer, but they didn't hear my question. But basically, so the story of Atlantis, you obviously have a different theory of what it is. I guess you don't consider, some people consider it a conspiracy theory. But yeah, so just, I guess if we could start, what's the main kind of accepted version, and then what's your version?
Yeah, so for most people, I think if you ask them what it is, people would say, well, it's a lost continent that people think sank into the ocean. And of course, today with our modern knowledge of plate tectonics and stuff, people are saying, well, hey, that's ridiculous. There are some people still trying to kind of go down that path. And then there's a lot of people who sort of say, well, yeah, Atlantis is in Florida, Atlantis is in Indonesia, Atlantis is in, you name it, right? And I think that what a lot of people are talking about is sea levels did rise about 10, 12,000 years ago. So anything that's on the continental shelf or in the Caribbean and so forth, there used to be a lot more land. Ocean levels were lower, ocean levels rose. So the thing is, there's a lot of real places that got flooded over thousands of years, but I think everybody's just sort of applied the label Atlantis to all that stuff. So I think there's a lot of confusion, and hopefully this documentary went a long way to, advancing the conversation about the subject.
And I mentioned your documentary, The Atlantis Puzzle. You can get it on YouTube. I think it's also on Tubi, Mark said.
Yeah, you can get it on Amazon.
Amazon,
I don't think it's on
well.
Prime yet.
But it's available.
Movies,
just
Google
search.
Play. It's out there. Yeah.
Gotcha. Cool. So, So then where your theory then is what exactly? That it was essentially on the western coast of Africa? Northwestern Africa?
So, I think a lot of people who've looked into this have heard of the Rashat structure, which is also known as the Eye of the Sahara. It's in a country called Mauritania. It's on the west coast of Africa. And so a lot of people are sort of saying, well, hey, that's Africa. What's that got to do with Atlantis, if anything? And the theory we explore in the documentary, The Atlantis Puzzle, which is not mine, it's a theory by a Greek researcher named George Sarantidis. So Sarantidis had dug into this stuff about 20 years ago. And basically, he retranslated, with the aid of an ancient Greek philology expert at Athens University, the two books that Plato wrote, Timaeus and Critias, because he really wanted to get to the heart of what does this story really say? And is there anything in here that seems fishy that we could latch onto to try to pin down and answer this question once and for all?
Right. And what's the earliest written recording of just Atlantis, just the idea of it?
Yeah, so I mean, this is a big debate in this if you can call it a field, right? Plato wrote this book probably about 2,400 years ago. He wrote these two books, and that's where the story is contained. But as I think a lot of people might not know, Plato wrote a little bit like Shakespeare or somebody like that, because the books he wrote were sort of like these dialogues with different characters talking. So I don't think you can ever really say succinctly, okay, Plato believed X, he believed Y, or he believed Z. It's all a bit ambiguous because you have people talking. It's like what did Shakespeare believe if we're reading Hamlet, right?
Right.
Like just kill a mofo for revenge. I mean,
Sure.
what's the
Yeah.
like is that what we're supposed to take away from it, or are we supposed to take away that revenge is bad? Are we supposed to, what are we supposed to take from that story? And I think it's the same thing with the Plato's The Story of Atlantis. It's ambiguous. Are we supposed to believe it was real? Did he want people to believe it was real? Did he believe it was real? So this opens the door for all this debate and controversy. And then you get people who bring in the aliens and the interdimensional portals and the power crystals and the fishmen with the laser guns. Yeah. So
I assume you don't believe any of the crystal power portal business.
It's always good to have a power crystal or two in your back pocket. But
the ladies like the power crystals. It's not really a guy thing.
It's what I hear. Yeah. Well, so in this documentary, what we really tried to do is follow Serenitidis's ideas. And one of the biggest things he found was when he was going back and reading the original ancient Greek alongside a modern translation, he said, wait a minute, it says Atlantic Ocean. I'm looking at the ancient Greek. It doesn't say Atlantic Ocean in here anywhere in terms of, you had to cross some body of water to get to Atlantis. And, old translations had always translated this as Atlantic Ocean. And what it says is something more like the Atlantic Sea. And for us in English, it doesn't make a difference, but in Greek, it made a difference. The Aegean Sea, right, in Greece, is called the Aegean Pelagos. So it's a certain type of sea. The Ionian Sea is a Pelagos. The Adriatic Sea is a Pelagos. The Mediterranean's a Thalassa. The Black Sea is the Euxenos Pontos. So the ancient Greeks had really specific names for different bodies of water.
And what exactly is a Pelagos?
A Pelagos is like a sea. Think of the Aegean Sea. Okay. Mostly surrounded by land with some islands.
Like an archipelago?
Not the ocean.
Yeah.
Well, an archipelago is like kind of the opposite. It's like a chain of islands. Yeah.
Gotcha.
But
this is like
but it comes the same route. It's the same route. So the point is that to get to Atlantis from apparently from Greece, you had to cross an Atlantic Pelagos. And everybody, since people have been doing these translations in the 1800s, said, oh, I've never heard of an Atlantic Pelagos. He must have meant the Atlantic Ocean. I know the Atlantic Ocean. And I think what we find out, and one of the things we explore in the film, is there's a tremendous amount of climate change that's taken place on Earth in the last 10, 12,000 years. People in Victorian England didn't know about this.
Right.
And this is part of the reason why this got mistranslated. So Serenitidis said, well, wait a minute. Plato's not a moron. He's not going to say the Atlantic pond if he meant the Atlantic Ocean, and he's not going to say the Atlantic Sea if he means the Atlantic River. So there must be something more here. And sure enough, if you go back and you followed Serenitidis's reasoning, basically, spoiler alert, he comes up with the idea that Atlantis was really just the western part of Africa. That's what Plato meant. And so we go down this rabbit hole to figure out, okay, well, is there any evidence for this? What is it meant to be true, or was there a myth that he drew on? What was actually going on in 9600 BC? So we kind of go through this examination based on all the climate data and the archaeological stuff that we know today.
And so then have they? Because I guess you're saying that it is off the lost, whatever, Atlantis is off the western coast of Africa. Like, have they investigated that? Have they sent any of those Titanic submersible things down there to just have a look?
So this is one of those questions, right? I think there's a difference between this is the setting for this story and this story was literally true, right?
Right.
So again, if we go to like Hamlet's a great example. Hamlet's supposed to take place in Elsinore Castle, which is supposed to be in Denmark, in Sjælland, the island Sjælland. Well, I've been to that castle, and the real name of the place is Helsingør. and Hamlet's based on a story, actually an ancient Danish pre-Viking story called Amleth. So he just took the H from the end of Amleth and put it on the front, called it Hamlet, and he took Helsingør Castle and he called it Elsinore.
Right.
So is the fact that Helsingør Castle is a real place mean that the events of Hamlet are true as written, right? Or is it a blend of myth and story and legend that got put together? So I guess to answer your question, if you look at the Green Sahara, there were these waterways that emptied out into the Mediterranean, kind of where Tunisia is today.
Okay.
So there's a series of huge lakes because the climate was totally different, right? What's desert today was probably more like Kenya, right? It's like where you go on safari, you picture like giraffes and elephants running around. That's what the world looked like in that time period. And because there were these huge monsoon rains, there were huge lakes and rivers, which sort of lends itself, it ties together pretty well with the geography of Plato's story, again, according to Serentidis's retranslation work.
And are there like what's the old? Are there like really old maps that have it on there? Have Atlantis on there? Because Atlantis was just the capital, right?
Well, so there's supposed to be the continent, and then there's supposed to be an island, and then there's supposed to be this ringed capital city made out of concentric rings, and that's what everybody. I'm sure you've seen the pictures of the Eye of the Sahara, the Rashat structure. It looks, and plus or minus 5-10%, the measurements of that place match up to the capital city of the Atlantean Empire that Plato describes. Problem is, you go there today, there's no evidence of a massive 40-kilometer wide city, right? So is it the location? Was there a myth? Was there something else that took place there thousands of years ago? I think it's still an open question.
And what's your best theory?
I think it's the whole thing's a kind of a blend of older myths. I think that's a blend of some real true things. So one of the things we found out is, people had boats going back not just thousands of years, but tens, maybe even hundreds of thousands of years. So this idea that if you live in a very aqueous environment full of lakes and rivers, that you're not going to have a boat just because it's 10,000 years ago, turns out is probably not true, right? This is one of the craziest things I found out, that seafaring apparently goes back even to Neanderthal times. And they found evidence of this on islands in the Mediterranean where you don't find the boats, right? Because they all rotted away within a couple thousand years. You find stone tools on an island in the middle of the Mediterranean. You say, well, how'd that get there? It didn't wash up there. People sailed there in boats and made these tools. So it kind of changes the picture because you're talking about Stone Age if you go back 12,000 years. So I think based on, and people can draw their own conclusions from the documentary, but I think we were able to identify some facts. Like there was a group of people who spoke Niger Congo, which is one of the two major language groups in Africa, North Africa today, who expanded from this region of the Rashat, Mauritania, all the way eastward across North Africa and over a span of a couple thousand years. That's basically the gist of the Atlantis story, is there were people in West Africa who expanded across North Africa to the east and went up into the Mediterranean. So was there some real live event or series of events that became mythologized and passed down? Did Plato hear about this and then kind of add his own layers on top of that? So I think it's not called the Atlantis solution. It's called the Atlantis puzzle because it's complicated, it's confusing, and a lot of it's really unclear.
And what about the Green Sahara?
Yeah, this is like one of the most remarkable things I learned about this whole shooting this whole film. So the Sahara today obviously is a massive desert like the size of the United States. It's pretty damn dry. There's not a heck of a lot of life out there in the middle of some parts of it. But if you go back to the end of the Pleistocene, the dawn of the Holocene, which is about 10,000 BC, the climate suddenly changed. And you probably heard all this stuff about there was a comet impact and Younger Dryas, a cooling event, and all this kind of stuff. But there was a drastic climate change that took place at the end of the last ice age. Over a few hundred years, maybe 1,000 years, sea levels rose a tremendous amount, hundreds of feet. And the amount of rain and precipitation and stuff, just everything shifted. The climate shifted. And the crazy thing about this, Danny, is that, again, I read a lot of research papers to try and fact check all this. This is not just, this happens every 20,000 years. So every 20,000 years, it's like a cycle where the Sahara will turn green in a pretty rapid period.
It becomes like a
within few hundred
rainforest,
years.
essentially.
I wouldn't say rainforest. I'd say, yeah, more like Kenya, like kind of like
Just very
grasslands with
lush
some
and-
forest. Yeah, I mean, and obviously the further south you go, the more rain there is. So it's more like the Congo jungle it becomes. The
Right.
further north you go, the more it's like kind of like, yeah, like grasslands and stuff like that.
Gotcha. Did something similar happen
Yeah.
in like on around other parts of the Mediterranean, like north of, like on the north side?
Yeah, I mean it's a really weird, complicated climate thing, right? So weirdly, like the African monsoons, which today everybody knows the rainforests and stuff, that's where it's that's where it's rainy. That's where the monsoon belt is. So during the Green Sahara, that monsoon belt moved north. So it goes from like the Congo and stuff up northward to what's desert now. Same thing in the Mediterranean, the precipitation belt apparently moves south. So you're getting like a double whammy where it was, dry 1,000 years ago, all of a sudden, boom, you're getting hit by these huge monsoons and there's huge lakes. And then, if you live near lakes, you get lake effect, rain and so forth. And it becomes this cycle. And I wouldn't say it's a vicious cycle. It's probably a nice cycle if it's been desert and you're looking for some
100%.
rain. But it's just a total change. And what happened at this time is all these animals like elephants and hippos and crocodiles and anything you can imagine migrated across the Sahara, and then people followed them and killing them and eating them. So a whole area the size of the United States became repopulated in a matter of a few hundred or 1,000 years. It's crazy.
Interesting. And what about artifacts? Like, have there been any artifacts that can be kind of attributed to that time and location?
Yeah. I mean, so this is the thing I was describing where there's a group of people in the Mauritania region, spoke Niger Congo, and they spread across North Africa. And these were Stone Age people, but you can tell it's the same group of people because of the arrowheads that they used. So it's something called an Unan stone point, I think. And so this group of people, migrated across. Now, was this a peaceful migration? Were they killing other people as they went? Were they befriending people? Nobody knows. But there is evidence from that time period of battles and of people dying from arrow wounds, right? So I think it's one of those things where it's a little bit of maybe of a snowball effect, where maybe some real event happened where a group of people spread across and took over this territory, and it turned into a myth that got passed down for thousands of years. And then Plato picks it up, adds in elements from his own time, changes the story around to suit his purposes, and then that's the story we have today.
Gotcha. So do you have a theory of like what modern day people might be closest to the people who lived in, I guess, Atlantis?
Yeah, I mean, it's probably
because there
all
must
the
be some,
same-
right? Like,
Yeah, it's probably all the same people anybody who speaks Niger Congo, right? So anybody from, kind of parts of Algeria down through Mauritania, all the way down to Nigeria would be, if you're a Niger Congo speaking person, and, I don't know the DNA, but if the DNA goes back and that's the group they belong to, in theory, that's the group that may have inspired this story in the first place.
and do people in that area, like, do they have these kind of stories, like kind of in their culture where they're like, yeah, like, do they talk about that? Like, there used to be this, like, we used to be this, water or whatever, like.
See, that's the thing. Not as far as I'm aware, but again,
Because you'd
we
think
have
that
no
there would be
idea.
that, right?
Yeah.
Like somewhere, just in some like kind of bastardization of that story would eventually still kind of exist.
You would
somewhere,
think so.
right?
Yeah, you would think so. And as far as I'm aware, nobody has definitively latched onto that. I think one of the things you do have, though, is these flood myths are in every culture, right? So it seems likely that a lot of the flood myths that we have, both in the Middle East and in North Africa and anywhere else, probably go back, and certainly in Greece, right? So probably go back to the early Holocene, because you can look back at, like, again, this is another thing I fact checked during the process of when we were doing pre-production on the film. You go back to that time period, there is evidence of huge kind of monsoon events where you have maybe a couple hundred years of massive flooding and stuff like that. And you have to imagine, if your village is getting washed away, you're a Stone Age person, this is the most traumatic thing you could imagine.
Sure.
It turns into a myth. It turns into a story, like kind of like the Black Sea, right? The Black Sea apparently flooded in a tremendous amount, like 7,000 something BC, right? So some people believe that inspired the story of Noah's Ark, because you had something that was like a small lake and it turned into, something the size of Germany overnight almost.
Right. Yeah, my grandmother was actually from near the Black Sea, and I never heard of any of these myths of. It's not like she was ever talking about these kind of stories of these great floods. So
well, they found settlements in the Black Sea like a couple hundred feet below the current sea level, I believe. And I think these are from, maybe Bronze Age kind of stuff. I don't know exactly, but
right.
I think, to me, Danny, what's most fascinating about this story, and again, I'm sorry to all the people who were hoping for the power crystals and the global pyramid empire and the aliens.
No, it's fine. It's good to hear, like, actually somewhat, alternate versions of
semi-rational. I try to at least be semi.
Well, it sounds like you've been on the ground there, actually, like researching this. Not just like scrolling through Wikipedia.
No, I think the idea with this film was to follow Serentidis's ideas, but then also fact check them against what do we know from archaeology, what do we know from history, how do you match up climate with mythology. I think that's really fascinating, right? So real events may have happened and they get turned into myths. I mean, do we believe Noah's flood took place exactly the way it's written in the Bible? I personally don't, but doesn't mean there wasn't a massive flood in the Black Sea, 9,000 years ago.
Right.
So
the phone lines are open right now. 1-888-949-2969. If anybody has any questions for Jack about this, you can call in. We will do our best to get to all of you. So you talk about this weather cycle. What exactly is it called? The weather cycle?
So you have this. It's some people call it the African humid period. Other people just call it the Green Sahara. And kind of what's craziest, at least to me, is a lot of this stuff just has become understood in the last like 25 years. So before that, the first guy who showed up in North Africa was a German explorer, I think in the 1850s, named Heinrich Barth. And this guy did this massive journey kind of all throughout Northwest Africa. And he started noticing, there's all these rock carvings of hippopotami and giraffes and stuff. I'm in the middle of the desert. I've been walking 1,000 miles. I have barely seen a blade of grass. What is a carving of a giraffe doing in the middle of utter bleak desert? And it dawned on him that they must have lived here, right? There must have been people living here who saw giraffes. Otherwise, how can you explain this? So the climate had to have changed. And did you ever see that movie, The English Patient?
No, I remember it because I remember it was a big Oscar movie, but I don't think I ever watched it. I know. Ralph Fiennes and Emma Thompson.
Yeah, Ray Fiennes, and they so like that story, they go out, and that's based on a true story of this group that went out to this place in Western Egypt called the Gilf Kabir, and they found these caves with cave paintings and carvings on them of people swimming, and they're in the middle of the Libyan desert. So this was one of those things where, and I think this guy Laszlo Almazi was the Hungarian explorer, first guy to coin the phrase, there must have been a green Sahara. And that's where this idea kind of really started to pick up. But it's only like maybe the last few decades that scientists have really started to realize, hey, this is not only did this happen, not only was this climate utterly different on essentially half of a continent, but this has been happening for at least hundreds of thousands of years, and some people say as long as 8 million years. So as long as humans or early chimp ancestors have been around, the green Sahara has been shifting like every 20,000 years, kind of like clockwork.
Right. Do you know how far we are into that cycle? Like, is it fully expected that this is just going to happen in some thousand amount of years?
So I think we're at like peak dryness right now. And so in theory, like you would get back to peak kind of green Sahara stuff in another, I don't know, 9,000 years, 10,000 years, something like that. But the weird thing is I heard from this German desert explorer that because of man-made climate change, it's accelerating the process. So things are kind of happening faster. And he's saying that he's seen signs that the Sahara is starting to regreen ahead of thousands of years ahead of schedule.
And what would that look like? Like if that were to happen, how long would that take? Like, is that, millions of people being displaced? Like, can you live through that? Or
I would think yes, because I would think that if anything, it's going to bring more water, and it's gonna help people who are living in these kind of desert communities where they're reliant on wells and stuff. So if you think about it, this is actually like a very non-PC thing, and I'd love to be a little contrarian. So
yeah, sure.
Every person who's buying an electric car, you're sort of saving coastal people in Scandinavia who are going to lose coastline if the sea level rises.
Or
but you're
New York,
also
I guess.
Yeah, or New York, but you're screwing over people in Saharan Africa who would love for more water to be in the atmosphere, because it will, as the temperature rise, more water gets picked up from the oceans and dropped as rain. So there are winners and losers in the climate change game, right? But not everybody's losing. Some people are going to win. And the big winners are going to be people like the people of the Sahara, who their useless desert land could become pasture or could become farmland. Right. And over thousands of years. So I think it's like if you buy a diesel truck, you're screwing New Yorkers. If you buy an electric car, you're screwing poor Saharan Africans.
Basically, if you own an electric car, you're racist.
Yeah, that's where I was really going with that.
Sure.
Yeah, I'm glad you picked up on it.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, that'll make a good soundbite. All right, let's take a call here. One moment, please. Hello, you're on Low Value Mail. Who am I speaking with?
Hello, this is Patrick.
Hey, what's up, Patrick? You're on with Jack.
Yeah, so I was curious about how the solar cycle affects the flat Earth theory.
Well, I'm not aware that the Earth is flat. I learned it was spherical. But
we have some non-globalists who watch the show.
Okay. There's something called Milankovitch cycles, right? And those are really the things that apparently drive the green Sahara. And it's three things, right? You have the tilt of the Earth's axis changes a little bit over super long periods of time, and so does the obliquity of our orbit around the sun, right? We don't have a perfect circle around the sun. It's like a slightly,
it's like
or what do you call it? It's an ellipse, not a circle.
Right.
So it's some parts of the year we're a little closer to the sun, and sometimes we're a little farther. That also changes apparently over huge, vast periods of time, right? And then the last thing you probably heard of is the precession of the equinoxes. And this is this idea that some people have said, well, there were advanced ancient civilizations who understood this, is the idea that basically like the Earth is tilted a little bit, right? So that's why we have seasons. So when the Earth is tilted toward the sun in the northern hemisphere, it's summer. When it's tilted away, it's winter, because you're getting less heat from the sun.
Right.
So I think the idea is these three things combined, kind of like we were talking about earlier with, it's like this snowball effect. So think about it like this. Like if you leave your car parked outside with the windows up on a sunny day in July, it's going to be totally different than if you leave your car parked outside with the windows up on a cloudy day in December. Right. So
or even a sunny day in December.
Sure.
Yeah.
So it's like these things, the amount of sun, the season, you know, the heat bouncing back off the ground, whatever, these things all kind of interact to create a bigger effect than you would normally get. So I don't know if that answers the question.
Caller, now tell everybody why Jack's wrong about everything he just said.
That would take far too long, but I have another question.
Thank you.
What about the Milana cycles?
Are you the Milankovitch cycles?
No, the Milana cycles.
I'm not familiar with those.
What is that?
I'm sure there are many cycles. Yeah.
Moana, like the movie?
No, Milana.
What is that?
What is that? Yeah.
The Earth is a dreidel.
Gotcha. All right.
All right.
Thanks, caller.
Last question.
Oh, okay. Real question?
Oh, all right. What?
Yeah, go ahead.
Global warming and flat Earth in relation to Atlantis. Hypothetically speaking, if flat Earth would be true, how would that affect?
It's not, though.
How would those two affect?
I mean, it's...
hypothetically.
I don't know.
Well, I'm not. Yeah, I'm not,
I feel like you. I feel like you as a flat earther would be the one who has to tell us that versus vice versa.
Well, no, I'm curious what his thoughts are.
Well, I don't really. I guess I don't believe that the Earth's flat for two main reasons. One, I've flown airplanes and I can get up high enough where I can see the curve of the horizon.
Mm-hmm.
The other reason is boats will disappear if you're out at sea if they go far enough over the horizon, so you know the Earth's curved because you can gradually see them sinking. The third reason is if you were to measure the shadow of a straight object like an obelisk in Egypt, and this was actually done by some ancient Greeks at different latitude, you can see that at the exact same moment on the exact same day, the sun is at a different angle. Not to mention, we've also sent spaceships out and we've observed
allegedly
the Earth.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
This a lot of people are just buying this flat. I think so many people's just trust in all things has been whittled away so much that they just arrive at, they go, well, it just, the Earth must be flat because they're lying to us about everything.
Yeah.
So
well, here's the thing. I don't actually look down at people for believing in these conspiracy theories and stuff. I think it's once you've looked into it enough, right? It can be you can get to the bottom of it, but it's not easy, right? There was a professor at, I think, the University of Chicago in astronomy, and on day one, he used to give a lecture where he explained that the sun went around the Earth, and then he would, and you could see the faces of kids in the audience being like, "The heck is this guy talking about?"
Sure.
Then he would say, "Prove me wrong."
Right.
And of course, he knew it wasn't true. But the point was, none of these kids could explain to him why this wasn't true. So the fact of the matter is that from our perspective, right, it does look like the sun goes around the Earth. And you really have to have some pretty developed understanding to understand why that's not the case.
Sure. Yeah.
So, it's not, again, I don't laugh at people who believe in some of these different things. I think it's just a question of you gotta dig into it a little bit. And I agree with you. The trust that people have, people email me all the time, Danny, about, oh, I have an idea, or listen to my theory. Oh, you're wrong. Atlantis was over here and this, that. And I'm not the high court of Atlantis authority. That's maybe George Serentitis, right? The Greek researcher. I think it's a question of, why has our trust been eroded? Why do people question these things? And I think sometimes it's because the explanations we're given of certain things are not satisfactory, right? They don't explain everything. They're confusing, and it doesn't all neatly tie together. And also, we've been fed a lot of bullshit from the news media and the government over 100 years. So why should people that, as you said, once the trust is eroded, then why should I believe that the Earth is a sphere?
Right. Do you have like an annual, do you guys have like a Society of Atlantis researchers kind of thing? Like, are there like?
Oh, I wish. I mean, I think
you guys don't have like a meetup. See, that's where the flat earthers got you, because they have Flattoberfest.
They're way ahead of me. I mean, I'm new to this game. I'm not an Atlantis guy. I stumbled into this by accident.
How did you get into it? What is your background originally?
So this is going to sound insane, Danny, but I
mean,
studied...
the last guy thinks the Earth is flat. You can't.
Right. The bar got set at a certain level. So I went to Yale. I studied classics and architecture there. So ancient history, philosophy, literature, all that jazz. So I had this classics background. I wound up working on Wall Street for about a decade. I had a lot of bills to pay. And then I quit and moved out to LA, started my film production company about a decade ago. So, in 2019, I'm on vacation with my wife on the Greek island of Santorini. I'm in the hotel lobby waiting for a taxi, and there's a bookshelf, and my wife's just looking through what's on there, and she said, "Oh, hey, you might find this interesting." And it's this book, The Atlantis Conference 2008, and it's a big, heavy thing. And I opened it up, and it's like academic research papers people had written about Atlantis. And I had to kind of pinch myself. I was like, what planet am I on? This is like a real event that went down, I think, on the island of Santorini. And I didn't have a book with me, so I just started reading this by the pool while I was on vacation. And that's where I stumbled on a couple papers by this guy, George Serentidis, the Greek researcher who had the idea about the Rashad and so forth. And because I had a background in classics and I'd studied Plato and I'd studied classical languages, I'm reading through and I thought most of the book was nonsense, but I don't know how I found it. It just, you open it up and it's like fate. And I'm reading through, I thought, my God, this guy stands out. He's totally different. He's completely thorough. His classical research is all correct. This is all right. This is all accurate. And then it just hit me like a ton of bricks. Like, my God, this guy might have actually figured this out. And you just are like, what planet am I on?
Sure.
It's a sense of shock. So I think it's amazing. And George himself is quite an amazing story. Like, he went to Mauritania in 2008, chartered an expedition, went out to the Rashad with GPS measuring equipment and altimeters, and he charted the entire place because he wanted to be sure that he wasn't like seeing things, thinking that this was in fact where the place should be. And lo and behold, it's a pretty strong match. So I just stumbled into this by accident. I just thought this would make a great film. I wrote the guy an email. Actually, my wife encouraged me to write him an email because I couldn't stop talking about it. He's still alive. He lives in Greece. He's from Athens. And people can find his website. It's called platoproject.gr. But it's in English. It's an English website. So you can see all his research and, there's talks he's given and stuff like that.
And is that kind of like the main area where most of this happens is in Greece? Is it just because of the Plato connection?
I guess. I think, also Santorini, right, was one of the places that people long thought was maybe a partial inspiration for the story of Atlantis. Because I don't know if you know, but it used to be called Thera in really ancient times, but the island exploded. It was a volcanic island, and so there's this massive explosion in like 1600 BC, and the entire center of the island just was annihilated, blew up. So today you go there, and the island is kind of like a ring, and there's a little new volcanic cone growing in the center. And as I said, I've been there. So some people saw this and said, look, island, water, rings, disaster equals Atlantis.
Right.
And for good reason, right?
Yeah, that seems like a good place. All right, let's take another call here.
Sure.
One moment, please. Phone lines are open. 1-888-949-2969. Hello.
Danny boy, it's Billy from Philly.
Billy from Philly. How's it going, man?
What's up, man? Hey, first thing, you know how they separate the boys from the men in Greece with a crowbar?
Oh.
Pretty good. Never heard that before. Pretty good. Pretty good.
I wanted to ask your guest what he thought about if there were giants involved. I always see, you know, in the Bible, not always, but in the Bible, they talk about giants and they find all these giant skeletons. And what's his take on that? Do you think any of those were in Atlantis?
Well, I guess I don't know about giants, and I think that one of the things is for sure though is that we're discovering more and more and more stuff about the ancient past. So we discover new species all the time. We discover, you know, things about the climate. We discover all kinds of stuff. Yeah, it wouldn't be surprising if there were genetic mutations or people who were larger or different. I mean, they found things that don't belong all over the world, right? In the desert of China, they found people with red hair buried there, right, from like thousands of years ago. So I think our picture of the ancient past is changing. I don't really know what a giant would be, and if they were around, why aren't they still around? Or are guys like World's Strongest Man, guys like Brian Shaw, are they like the modern descendants of people who are just bigger? I don't know.
Yeah. Or was it kind of relatively like where the giants they spoke of were actually just 6'5"?
Yeah,
well,
yeah.
I mean,
we're just giants of their times.
Sure.
I mean, they talk about giants on the island of Crete. They talk about a cyclops. I know a lot of them are myths, but you know, a lot of myths have some sort of truth to them. So even the cyclops, he's supposed to be some big giant man-eating monster in Greek mythology. So I'm wondering, you know, how true are these fables to what they're finding in skeletal remains of people all over the world? I don't think they were 6'5", and I think those descendants that in the strongman contest were from Scandinavia. They were the Vikings. They were the war gods, the gods of war. I think they're just some big ass dudes.
Sure. Well, I mean, you know, I'll tell you, my wife's from Scandinavia, and I'm 6'1". I'm not a small guy, and I go over there, and you're just like average. So those are big people over there. That's for sure. And but you know, I'll tell you something about the Cyclops. Have you ever seen an elephant skull? Where the trunk is, it's like a big hole in the middle of the head. And one of the theories about where the myth of the Cyclops originated is that somebody found early, very, very, very ancient people who'd never seen an elephant, saw elephant bones and saw an elephant skull, which is damn large. And it looks like there's a big hole in the middle of the head, which could be one eye. And that some people believe that that's where the myth of the Cyclops began. I don't know the answer.
Interesting.
Gotcha. All right. Well, I'll let you go. One last note. You know the motto of the Grecian army: never leave your brothers behind. Have a good night, guys. God bless.
A lot of jokes for everywhere. I have a question actually. Have you found what would maybe be like? Did you ever come across any sort of data point or evidence that made you think maybe this wasn't? That like maybe kind of poke some holes in the theory, or is it kind of for the most part everything you find lines up closest with your theory versus?
Yeah, well, again, like we talked about, I think
like do you sorry to cut you up, but like do you talk to
yeah.
other Atlantis people and they're just like, dude, you got it so wrong. Like it's like does that happen?
People tell me I'm wrong about stuff all the time.
But like specific, because you were saying the book from the guy that was from the Atlantis Conference 2008. Is that an annual conference?
Sure. I think they do it maybe every 2 or 4 years or something like that.
Have you been?
So I have not been. I've not been. I think they might have sidelined it during COVID. But
gotcha.
So yeah, Serentitis has written a book. I think he's putting out a new English language version, like an updated version of it, hopefully in the next year or so. I think it's called Plato's Atlantis. But yeah, I mean, listen, there's a ton of different theories out there. The thing is, a lot of these theories are kind of these outdated Victorian era theories where they weren't doing a close reading of the original story. I say to people like, do you want to invent stuff, because if people invent stuff, right? If I say there's a pink elephant sitting over your head, well, you can just as easily say there is not a pink elephant sitting over your head, because there's no evidence that we can factually agree on, right, to prove this.
Right.
So I think that's the danger with some of these theories. People email me stuff all the time. I kind of wish they would stop. I'm wondering if I've torpedoed my career by doing this movie, but I find it a super fascinating subject.
Yeah,
but
it's
I
very
think
interesting.
it tends to, again, like if you have a pet theory about it, where did the theory begin? Did you go back to the ancient Greek like George Serentitis and really carefully read it and do a new deep factual translation that you paid a philologist to double check? Or are you just being like, oh, bro, it could have been the ancestors of Vikings and they might have, sailed down to Africa and the war god was actually a mutant alien who came from Alpha Centauri? I mean, it's like, well, that sounds great, but where's the evidence to support that, right? So, look, I think this debate's going to continue to go on for a long time, but my feeling is if you literally look at archaeology and you say, hey, look, there were Stone Age people living here, that all immediately doesn't match up with the story, which sounds like a Bronze Age war, more like a Trojan War kind of a thing, more maybe even like Plato's own time, which was like circa 400 BC. So again, I think there's layers in this story. So it's really hard to say. If someone said, hey, is this story literally as it's written true? I would say no. But if somebody said, hey, don't you think that there are maybe some myths and legends and events behind all this that Plato drew upon when he kind of did? It's like when you see a movie of, an old story. Yeah, like we were talking about Hamlet. If someone makes a movie of Hamlet today and it's based on Hamlet, right? It's not the same as the original story. They're gonna put a Hollywood spin on it and change the characters around and make, maybe Hamlet's gonna be a black female midget or whatever.
Sure,
but
in a wheelchair.
right? They're gonna put their own flavor on it. So is that story true? Was the prior story true, or again, was it based even further back in time on some legend, like Hamlet really was, right? Like pre-Viking legend.
Right. And so is there some sort of like some sort of either artifact or something that would confirm your theory, like that you're looking to find? Like is there like a singular thing that you think that could be found, whether it's through like an archaeological dig or whatever, that you could just be like, this is it? Like what would that thing be?
Well, I think, look, if somebody all of a sudden unearthed the foundations of like a Bronze Age style, massive 40-kilometer wide city at the Rashat, that would utterly change things overnight. And as you probably, maybe many of your guests know, there are discoveries that are happening all the time in the Middle East, like in Turkey with Göbekli Tepe and with some of this stuff in Israel, like in Jericho and all these other super ancient cities that range from like 8, 9, 10, 11,000 BC. So none of them are 40 kilometers wide, right? I mean, we're not talking about massive places. We're talking more like what we would think of as like a town, but thousands of people might have lived there. So we're discovering, I think, all along today, we're finding stuff only moves in one direction, right? Nobody's ever saying, oh, we thought people had metal in 4,000 BC, but we found out it was really just 1,000 BC. Right. It's always going the opposite direction. They're like, oh, we thought it was 4,000. Now we find out it was 6,000. So that stuff happens overnight, right? I mean, did you hear about the thing in White Sands, New Mexico here that they found with the footprints?
No.
They found these fossilized footprints of people. And, the theory of the North America was that it was people like 10, 11, 12,000 years ago when the ice melted, people came across from Alaska. But they found these footprints down at White Sands, and I've been down there. And these footprints, they dated them with 3 different methods to 23,000 years ago. So what that means is the standard theory taught in universities was that, hey, people did not get here until whatever, 12,000 years ago. And now, overnight, it's been pushed back by over 10,000 years. 10,000 years.
Yeah, that's a big gap. So, that's a lot can happen in that 10,000 years.
So if you, like the day before that stuff was published, if you said, oh, people have been here for 23,000 years, you would be laughed out of academia. The day after it's published, all of a sudden you're at the cutting edge and you're the smartest guy in the room. So this is like one of those things. It's like the danger of our modern world, right, Danny? So it's like, if facts are changing all the time, how do you judge what's true?
Right. You just kind of, I mean, I guess you just take all available information and make your best theory. Is there an active, like, are there active people kind of like, is, you know, money being spent trying to discover this kind of stuff? Because I imagine obviously our archaeologists could be doing all sorts of different things. Like, are people focused on this?
I don't think so. And I think that's one of the most, I think one of the most annoying things about this is a couple archaeologists have criticized this film and sort of said, oh, this was pseudoscience. You're trying to prove this was real. I said, not at all. We're just trying to look at, hey, what's the myth say? And what can we find out about this? What cool shit exists behind this story, right? It's like, you know, again, if you're investigating the myth of the Trojan or the story of the Trojan War, it'd be really cool if all of a sudden you found the war chariot of Achilles or something. Like, that'd be awesome.
Sure,
It would
yeah.
substantiate it. Or you'd find out, oh, actually there were 3 guys named Achilles and they all got combined in the story or something. Like, it's more to me about an investigation. So I think from an archaeological standpoint, you know, this area also hasn't been explored very well. Like, the western desert of Africa is a huge area. It's very hard to get to. There have been some digs and there have been explorers out there. People have gone to the Rashat. And I don't think that anybody thinks that tomorrow they're going to turn up this evidence. I think it's more, look, I think the archaeologists are not seeing, it's like when you only have as a hammer, everything looks like a nail.
Yeah.
Right. So they're like, oh, this story isn't true. I'm like, no shit, it's a myth. Like, what do you expect? Right.
But it's a myth that survived for so long. Like, generally you think, like, there must be a number of myths that just at some point just died out for whatever reason, right? I'm sure.
Yeah.
No shortage.
And the thing is, like, you know, and people can see this in the documentary, you know, I wanted to try and substantiate, okay, how could a big flood have happened at the capital city, right? At the Rashat structure, right? Well, first of all, it's a plateau. So you're kind of surrounded on 2 or 3 sides by a place where you could have all this runoff come down and flood this circular area. And that happens in many cities today, right? When if you're up in the mountains, you get bad storm, you get flooding. So I went to to Oregon State University and I talked with an earthquake expert there. And I said, listen, nobody believes a continent sank. That's the old version of the story. It's a wrong translation. But could a city have been flooded sometime in the Stone Age and that led to a myth that got carried down? And certainly that seems like that's a much more reasonable event. Yeah, and I mean, thumbs up. I don't know what's that.
Oh, I think you're on Zoom. It has this, like, I don't know if you see this little blue thing at the top. If you're on the Mac, and then there's a reactions thing on Zoom for some reason. It's really annoying.
Great.
Yeah. But yeah, that is. I kind of lost my train of thought on the thumbs up thing, but I had something I was going to add. I forgot. But I do have another question. So what I was going to say is they're constantly threatening us with the current climate change thing of saying entire cities are going to fall into the ocean. And if you're saying that this is what happened, then I guess that's not that crazy of a theory.
And the thing is, stuff like this actually happened in the historical record, right? So, like, in Greece and during Plato's lifetime, there was a city on the north edge of the Peloponnese that I've probably driven by because I lived in Greece for a year while we were filming and researching this. And it's called Helike, and it got hit by a massive earthquake and a tsunami, and the whole city was destroyed and flooded. So this could have been a perfect inspiration right in Plato's own lifetime, right? So we know stuff like this happens. It's not that crazy. I mean, think about it again, if you're talking about Stone Age people living in kind of like rock and adobe mud kind of buildings, huts in a village or something like that, even if it's a big village, if that thing gets hit by a massive monsoon and a flood, you're done, right? I mean, that mud walls are going to wash right away.
I mean, we saw what happened in Thailand, like in the early 2000s. You know, can't be the only time that there's just been giant tsunamis like that.
No, and even if it's a more localized thing, I mean, just look at what happened during Hurricane, what was it, Katrina in New Orleans?
Yeah.
I mean, this is a modern American city was turned into a wasteland
Right.
almost overnight, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
yeah, this is what I was going to ask as well. So what do the actual texts say about the Atlantis civilization? I imagine there's a number of them, but
yeah, so it's really actually it's just two pretty short sections, and really what I think this is one of the other keys that I think a lot of people are forgetting with this story is that Plato didn't write this as like a factual white paper. He wasn't like, hey, here's the facts, guys. Check it out. Submit this to scientific scrutiny. It's a story. And the story is about a guy telling other guys the story that he heard from another guy, you know, from his grandpa who heard it from another guy, right? So right there, Plato's putting distance between himself and the story. But the idea is that these people were, and I think it's probably a reference to these sort of semi-mythical Ethiopians of the Iliad and the Odyssey, some of whom were said to live at the western end of Africa by the ocean, close to where the sun sets. And they called them Ethiopians, which means it comes from the ancient Greek atho and opes. It means like burned face. So
why do we still call them Ethiopians?
It just
were they colonized
stuck,
with the Greek? They weren't colonized with the Greek or anything?
I think it's just a name that stuck. Yeah.
Weird.
So, but these were people who were in Western Africa as well. So they had like two groups of what they thought of as Ethiopians. Eastern Ethiopians, which is like where Ethiopia is today, Sudan. Western Ethiopians, which is like where Mauritania is. Anyway, so these people appear in the Odyssey, which is, you know, one of the classic works of Greek mythology. So I think probably Plato was making an allusion by putting the Atlanteans here. He was kind of drawing on this existing idea that a semi-mythical people had lived in this place. And then he sort of says, well, look, sounds like, again, a Bronze Age or an archaic, even a classic civilization. It's like there were 10 kingdoms. They were all united. And again, they have chariots. They fight with horses. They have boats like Greek boats, like triremes. So they fight with spears and bows and arrows. They don't have lasers and flying cars, right? You know, they have temples. Their god is Poseidon, who's the god of earthquakes and water and floods. So the idea kind of is that they got aggressive. They attacked all the rest of North Africa. They took it over. They conquered the Egyptians. They conquered the western part of the Mediterranean. And then only the Greeks, those noble fellows, drove back this tide and pushed these guys back all the way back to their capital city. That's when you have the story in the old translations. It said the continent sank overnight. Serentitis says, look, it's not what it says. It really says that the capital city was flooded, it was destroyed, and at the same time, the Greek army perished in this sort of series of earthquakes and floods. There's some parallels here, and again, my background in classics, like to me, I immediately see the Peloponnesian War, which was the war that happened during most of Plato's lifetime, right? He grew up into the Peloponnesian War. It's between Athens and Sparta and their allies, right? First part of the war, the Spartans attack the Athenians are on the defense. Same thing in the Atlantis myth, right? The Atlanteans attack the Athenians, the Greeks are on the defense. Second part of the war, what happens? The Athenians went over by boat. They attacked Syracuse, which is in Sicily, ancient Syracuse. So again, you're attacking a big capital city on an island by boat, right? So same thing in the Atlantis myth, the Greeks had to cross the Mediterranean, sail up, you know, attack the Atlanteans and march all the way to their capital city. And in the end, they were destroyed. Well, guess what happened in the real Peloponnesian War? The Athenian army that attacked Syracuse was captured and destroyed. And they put all these guys, they kept them prisoner in like a quarry where they packed like 7,000 dudes into this old quarry where most of them died of like disease and injuries and stuff. Well, if you're packing people down in a quarry and they're all dying, does that sound a little bit like losing your army when it gets covered by the earth, swallowed by the earth?
Sure.
It's a parallel, right?
Yeah.
So again, we can't say that any one piece of the story is definitely true or not true. I think there's shades of real history. There's shades of myth. there's references to like the Iliad and the Odyssey. Like I think it's all tied up in
It's
a
all
bundle.
tied together, and you're kind of just trying to.
We're trying to
separate.
we try to pick it apart in the Atlantis puzzle. Yeah, I hope you don't mind. I wore my sweatshirt to promote my film while we talk about promoting the film. So
yeah, absolutely. Hey man, I know how much films cost to produce, so
not cheap.
Not cheap. No. Even what people
Yeah.
think is, you go. Even when you tell people, even if you make a film that's cheap, you go, that was a lot of money.
Yeah, well, my buddies in Hollywood often say, it takes a lot of money to make a bad film.
Oh yeah. Hey man, I made a movie when I was living in Toronto that cost $1 million, and you go, man, you don't get much for $1 million.
It's shocking. It's really shocking how quickly that stuff can go and how it can be swallowed up. I mean, that's one of the things people. I think today we've become so used to being entertained that people forget. Like it's really hard. Like we had to do a lot of really difficult stuff to film this. This movie, I mean, we shot on both sides of the Atlantic. We were on boats, we were in the desert. We were here, we were there. I had 4 different crews. Stuff goes wrong, right? I mean, like the last day of filming in Greece, my DP, that's the main camera guy, he got heat stroke because we were filming. It was like 105 degrees during the day. So it was in the middle of COVID, and there was like a heat wave in Greece. And we're filming out I was supposed to go film out on a boat where there's no shade, and we're going to be out on this boat for hours. So this is the last day of filming, right? So we have to wrap up. 7:30 in the morning, it's a crew call, and my cameraman doesn't show up, which means we also don't have a camera.
Right.
So we try to track this.
Even if you
guy
do
down.
have the camera, you're like, well, nobody knows how to use it.
So this guy, we tried to track him down, and we almost got to the point where we were going to call the police. Like we called everybody. No one could find the guy, couldn't get a hold of him. And he was a pretty reliable guy. So it was like kind of shocking he didn't show up. Then so after a few hours, right? So now we've lost the advantage because you start early, as you know, in the morning. So you can shoot before we get the light, and so it's not 105 degrees, and you have no shade. So we found out later, we got another camera guy. So we're getting ready to shoot, and we find out, we said, well, what happened to this guy? Turned out he'd gotten heat stroke. His wife took his phone away because she didn't want us to call him because she thought he needed to rest.
Right.
So he had like 100 voicemails, and he just, his voicemail got full.
Sure.
We couldn't get through to the guy. So we start with this other guy. Every Greek I know is a sailor, except for my new cameraman. So we get out on the water, and after about 15 minutes, this guy immediately just vomits over the edge of the boat, right? Because he's sick. And we have to film for several hours. We have 2 boats. There's no redoing this, right?
No.
We booked the boats. We have the crews. This is maybe one of the most expensive parts of the film, to get these shots out on the boat. And the problem was, like, normally I'm okay on boats. Because of the heat and stuff, after this guy vomited, I started feeling seasick. And, you're in camera, you have to look, attentive and sort of like you're really with it and present a good show. I'm not an actor, but this was the best acting I ever did in my life.
Yeah. That's the biggest misconception about film shoots, is everybody thinks they're fun. And they're like, it's literally
miserable.
The least fun thing. Like everybody's like, oh, acting sounds fun. You're like, no, it sucks. It's like sitting around or sitting on a boat and vomiting, and
it's kind of
3 minutes, and then sit around some more. All right, let's take another call here. Phone lines are open: 1-888-949-2969. We're gonna actually wrap this up very shortly. Anyhow, thank you again, Jack, for coming on. I know who this is. I don't know if this is gonna be a serious call.
Let's find out.
But let's
One way to find out.
Hello.
Hey, what's going on?
Slav, what's up, man?
Hey, what's going on? Hey, I think I got into this because, well, this whole, like, what started is, like, that Disney film, Atlantis. I think that's what kind of got, like, a lot of kids in my generation into it. And plus, just always been into history. My question is more of, like, the academic sense. So, like,
You're talking about what? Atlantis, the Lost Empire, the Disney film?
Yeah, the animated film. Yeah, I think that's like what got a lot of kids around my age
into
at that time.
Gotcha.
Yeah, into it. Yeah.
I mean, it's all white people, it
that
seems
and
like,
that-
which just seems like basically inaccurate from what Jack's saying.
No, they had a doctor there. He was a black.
Yeah, but
The
other than
cartoon.
that,
And they have like a
Oh,
talking
they also had
octopus
a-
too.
talking octopus, yeah.
Oh,
Well, I
and
mean,
then
I guess they all
they
live
had
under. This all takes place, I imagine, under the
dem-
water.
Yeah, and then they had the demolition guy, and he's a Turk. I don't consider them white, but
Sure.
that's not even my question, anyways.
Oh,
my
Jim Varney
question
was in it.
More about
Cool.
what?
Go ahead. Sorry, I got
Yeah,
distracted.
It's all real cool stuff. But what is it? With academia, so like for instance, like Egyptology, they have like that one guy that's always been shown on like Discovery Channel and History Channel, the toad-looking guy, and he's been like really instrumental in like keeping people out of like accessing to stuff. Is there such a sentiment? Is there like such a tour de force of like within the archaeology community where people trying to search for these kind of things, where they've met pushback and resistance like that goes beyond them being called kooks or
Yeah, like
being
where does
discounted?
where does Atlantis
Or, like,
fall on the
has anyone
hierarchy
risked-
of
like has anyone
archaeology?
risked life? Has anyone like risked being murdered because they found or saw something?
I don't think that's the case. I think pretty much every academic has just dismissed this story out of hand. They say, well, it's an allegory. The Atlanteans were bad, so they got punished by the gods. End of story. But I think as we've talked about here, there's so much more behind this. And you remember, you're talking about an enormous area. So I think it's a little different than Egypt, where there's only, whatever it is, a certain number of big pyramids and things like that, where you're talking about all of West Africa. There's enormous areas that either haven't been studied, are really hard to study, or you don't want to go there because there's like Islamic militants out in the out in the desert chopping people's heads off and stuff like that. So, I think this is one of those areas where, as the decades roll by, we'll find out more and more about this. But I don't think there's a conspiracy like Egypt. I think is very different, where their whole economy, or
Yeah,
not
it's
their
big
whole
business.
economy, but
It's
the
big business.
tourism is such a big thing. So it makes sense they want to tightly restrict access. I mean, think about it. If you're a powerful person and you got money coming in, you want to keep that going. So I think this is a little different, where there's not a lot of money coming in, but there's not a lot of known artifacts and stuff out there. So it's an open story. I'm not really sure, or an open question. I don't know how it's going to go in future decades.
Has there ever been mention of Antarctica regarding any of these?
Yeah, I'm sure there were people. I mean, listen, at a certain point, and I think if you watch the documentary, you'll see we have a map at one point where we show a dot on like every major place that people have claimed Atlantis was, including Antarctica. But I think most of these theories came about kind of before people really understood plate tectonics, and before archaeology had kind of shown these things, or before the kind of classical research George Serentidis did that kind of said, hey, we're not talking about this crazy fantasy. We're just talking about maybe something that got lost in the mists of time, and it's a different story.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I'm still of the not like so much theory, but like it did start out with when I was little and I found out like in the Caribbean they have submerged roads.
Yeah, the Bimini Road, isn't that what it's called?
Yeah, there's that, and then I think there's a few other ones, but like I've swam in the Caribbean, in those keys and all those islands. It's like, yeah, the water at the most depth is like what, like 10, 20 meters. So
Yeah, it's like right near Miami, isn't it?
I mean,
Bimini? I think you could take day trips from Miami there.
Yeah, I think this is what we were talking about earlier, Danny. Like the water levels were considerably lower if you went back 6, 7, 8, 9, 10,000 years, right? So all that stuff, it suggests that, yeah, there were people living there. I just don't think that. So in other words, all around the globe, we should be finding evidence of people living in places that are now covered by water. It doesn't mean there was a global empire of people who only lived on the coastline, right? It just means people like to live by the coast. I
Well,
mean,
it's the best place to live just for sustaining yourself. Like that's a pretty normal thing, I think, throughout all civilizations where they always go towards the water for, just to survive. There's food there. There's water, assuming it's not salt water. Like,
yeah, well, totally. And it's also just like, so in that sense, there's probably innumerable quote unquote lost civilizations of people or tribes or groups who live by the coast and today is covered by water. So we'll hopefully find some of that, but the ocean and the water wave action and stuff can destroy a lot of stuff over 5 or 10,000 years.
Yeah, easily.
Yeah.
All right.
The most interest is the compute. What is it? The last part is the most interesting thing I've always been fascinated by was like, I forgot what it's called, but it's like the computer, where it's like the clockwork and gears. And
I think you're talking about the Antikythera mechanism.
Yeah. The little
that, and then it's like, what is the extent of, because I mean, you might have seen like video games where they show like dwarven civilizations that have like automatons.
Sure.
What is it? What is the extent of like found evidence
of ancient machines, like ancient clockwork and stuff like that? Yeah, well, certainly at least.
Then, you had to have a lot of time. You had to have a lot of time on your hands to figure that out and put it all together.
Yeah, well, at least 2,000 years ago, right? The Antikythera mechanism is. Some people think Archimedes invented it. Some people think it was from later. But the thing you got to remember is, if you think about the 7 wonders of the ancient world, right? How many of those do we have left? We have 1. And that's just within the last couple thousand years, right? So like the lighthouse at Alexandria was destroyed by an earthquake. The mausoleum was destroyed by an earthquake. The only thing that's left is the Great Pyramid of Egypt, right? So, I think the other thing people got to remember, like the Colossus of Rhodes was this massive 120-foot whatever statue on the island of Rhodes made out of metal, hundreds of years BC. And it collapsed after an earthquake. It sat there for like 700 years. And then a Jewish merchant from Edessa came in and carted it off on 900 camels and sold it for scrap metal, right? So
Sounds about right.
Of course. Fucking course.
Well, so what you got to think about is anything that was made out of metal, people would just take it, melt it down, and reuse it for something new, just like we take scrap metal today, right? Nobody is saying, hey, I really want to do my daily commute in a 1915 car. That metal has been melted down and reused probably several times, right?
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Slav, I gotta let you go. Thanks, buddy. All right, that was Slav, everybody, and that has been the show. Thank you very much, Jack, for coming on. Where can people find you? Where can people find your film?
Yeah, thanks a lot, Danny. I really appreciate it. AtlantisPuzzle.com. We'll have the links up there. Just click on the Atlantis Puzzle. You can watch it on Amazon. You can watch it on Google Play. You can watch it on Tubi. You can watch. It's all over the place.
Yeah. Just go check it out. And are you guys going to try and do a second one? Because I imagine that something like this is, how do you decide when you go no more, right?
I'm already. I think I'm already at that point. But
is the wife being like, ugh?
Yeah, well, we do have a book version of this, so it'll hopefully be coming out sometime next year. George Serentidis, check him out, platoproject.gr. He's got a new version of his book in English coming out hopefully next year. And I just encourage everybody, hey, go out there, find the facts for yourself, and we will be working on some new documentaries hopefully in the next 12 to 24 months.
Very cool. All right, everybody go check Jack out. Go check out the movie. And if you want to join me on the after show, you can do so. Join the channel or sign up. Patreon.com/lowvaluemail, MAIL. Otherwise, I will see you all next week. Have a lovely night. Bye-bye.
my shit heroic. Empathic abilities, yeah, my face be also stoic. Bleep, blow up, nigga, that just means I'm working. They see me as a leader, so that's why I'm Captain Kirkin. These tracks from the stars, that much is for certain. You can feel this hit if you up or if you hurtin'. I'm raising my stock, not talking my feet in some Birkin. Number Johnny 5, got a fucking short circuit. Bring the track to life when I spit phenomenal. When I hit, she feel that shit in her abdominals. These rappers make me laugh like comic view, they comical. You know I got a ball out, I hit the track running just like Sonic do. They don't wanna turn on my light switch. Yeah. They was trying to get me on my hype shit. Yeah. They don't wanna turn on my light switch. Yeah. And they tried to down me up some KO type shit. Yeah. They don't wanna turn on my light switch. Yeah. Now we pulling up fresh on some flight shit. Ha. They don't wanna turn on my light switch. Yeah. They don't wanna turn on my light switch. They don't wanna turn on my light switch. Yeah. They was trying to get me on my hype shit. Yeah. They don't wanna turn on my light switch. Yeah. Then they tried to down me up some KO type shit. Yeah. They don't wanna turn on my light switch. Yeah.